Welcome to another live episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we discuss the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, Badgers football, and basketball from an optimistic perspective. Wisco Fanatics is brought to you by Cardboard Legacy, Wisconsin's most complete sports card shop. Buy, sell, grade, and consign all at their location in Oshkosh.
Welcome, everybody. The day is finally here, the day we've been talking about. It is time for the 2024 Milwaukee Brewers season primer. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lineup for you. Tyler did a little bit extra work than me because I was busy with work, doing my duties for the government. But we got a lot of interviews on board here. We got some stat projections, some pitchers we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some newcomers, 26-man rosters. We're going to give you a record prediction at the end, some bold predictions. We got a lot of stuff on the plate for you today, but it's going to be a good one. Please do not be afraid to go into the comment section and ask us questions, put us on the spot. Give us your cause for concern with anything that we're saying. Give us your opinions. We love that. We want the comment section to fill up and go fast. But
we're live.
How you doing, buddy? Are you excited, man?
I'm excited. We've been working on these. I mean, we recorded our first interview almost 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago.
Yeah,
with Javik. So yeah, it's been a lot to put into it. And here we are, and we're talking Brewers for the next probably 2 hours.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we're gonna kick it off, and we're just gonna start it off simple, and we're gonna give our 26-man roster projections. So, you want to do maybe all the position players and then starters, or position players and then pitchers, or
I started at like catcher, first, second, short, third. I went by the numbers.
Yep.
Without pitcher, obviously, and then I went bench because I think there are going to be a few bench, and then I did starting pitcher, relief pitcher. So, what up, Taylor? How you doing, buddy? So let's let's start off with catchers.
All right, let's start off with catchers. I'm going to go ahead, and I thought about it really hard, and I was this close to saying that Eric Haas gets a roster spot, and I'm still like, he's tough. He's tough. Like, I really want to see Eric Haas make the roster, and spoiler alert, we're going to get into this with Vinney Rottino. I couldn't put him on. I wanted to so bad, but I couldn't do it. So my catchers, I have William Contreras and Gary Sanchez. Nothing sexy.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
playing baseball is good, but nothing unexpected, I'll say.
So, spoiler alert, I do have Gary Sanchez on here, just not under catcher.
Okay.
But I have Contreras and Eric Haas as catchers. I think Haas is I agree with you that he was tough. I was thinking about it too. I have so many scratch out marks on this one page for this one section because I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense either. No, he needs to be on there. So Haas, it just made sense to me when I wrote it down finally. So I have Contreras and Haas as catchers.
I originally had Haas on, and I took him off in favor of another utility man. But I'm going to do utility at the end because I have guys that play multiple positions. So first base, I just have Hoskins.
Same.
Taylor asked if Haas can play first base as like a platoon. Actually, if there's a guy that's going to be backing up first base, as like a platoon guy, it's going to be Gary Sanchez, actually. Gary Sanchez has some experience playing first base.
Yep, that's where I go. So I also have Hoskins as well. So.
Second base, Bryce Durang. He's locked in already. Pat Murphy already said he's going to be the opening day starter. Yep. Shortstop, Willie Adames, locked and loaded. Yep. Third base, who do you have at third base?
I have Joey Ortiz. There. I had to fit him somewhere. He's got a good glove, and I feel like the Brewers really put an emphasis on defense more than other teams have in this state, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very good at it. Obviously, they're very good at coaching it. That and pitching is like the two things that they're the best at, in my opinion. So I feel like just because of the defense, man, he gets on there.
So I'll reveal this. I do have Joey Ortiz making the roster as a utility man because he can play third, short, and second. For third base, I put Andrew Monasterio.
That's fair.
Outfielders, I have 4 guys on here for outfield. I'll give you a spoiler alert. Joey Wiemer I have on the bubble. We'll talk about this with Vinney. but I have Joey Wiemer starting in AAA, so he can just get more swings with his new swing.
Yeah. So the outfielders, I'm assuming, is Yelly, Churio, Frelick, and Mitchell.
That's the 4 that I have.
That's who I have as well. And the reason that I picked Mitchell over Wiemer is because Wiemer still has some options to go between the minors and the majors. So he still has some of that time left. So, again, work on the new swing would definitely be a good thing for him, benefit him and the team going forward.
Yeah, and then just looking at – this is tough. So I also have Owen Miller making the roster as a utility man.
Oh.
And it's tough. Like, I'm really torn with this last utility spot because, like, you could add Haas, like a guy like Christian Arroyo, maybe. But I put Oliver Dunn as a utility man.
That's fair.
Just as like the backup second baseman, and I could see this being like Dunn could be out and Haas or Wiemer could be in, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. So I'll throw that out there. Do you have any other position players as like backups?
So I put Sanchez down as DH because I did a DH spot.
Okay.
We'll get to Connor here in a second.
It's a great question.
And for utility, I wrote down bench and I put Andrew Monasterio. So Monasterio and Joey Ortiz, I think, are gonna be hand in hand. I think they're gonna trade days.
Yep.
And then I have Tyler Black on the bench.
I would love it. I
don't think the multi-position and the speed. I think I don't want to get into too much stuff just yet, but I really like the aspect of the Brewers' young speed. I think that, you look at a team like the Diamondbacks last year, they were kind of coming at you all the time with all their speed, right? And I think the Brewers can take that same approach, and Tyler Black is definitely one of those guys. He could play first base. He could back up first base. In case of injuries, he could play second, obviously third. So he's got a lot of options, in my opinion.
I love Tyler Black, so I wholeheartedly endorse that.
You like that one?
Oh, yeah, of course. And a high on base guy is the other thing, too, is guys that get on base is the big thing. So Connor asked a question on the YouTube side. He asked, would Sal playing third change how you see the outfield? Absolutely. If Sal were to get a couple more, opportunities at third base, that Pat Murphy is considering using him there even 2 or 3 times a week, then yes, I would move Joey Wiemer to the roster, and that would take out either Oliver Dunn or Owen Miller. I think Joey Ortiz is more likely to be given more innings than a couple of guys who are just, veteran utility guys.
Yeah. 100%. I think Wiemer would definitely just bump right up into that major league roster spot. And then obviously that gives you more flexibility. The thing with this roster is the flexibility is insane, dude. It is insane. So many guys can play so many positions. Like even, you go back a couple of years, like it was difficult for a guy to play right field, left field, or right field and center field. Like that was kind of something that wasn't a thing either. So we need a reliever.
Doreen said we need a reliever and a pitcher in rotation. So I'm going to say this. I honestly don't think they need to get one. I think the people wanting one is just for some name recognition, I think. The Brewers have options, even with the Devin Williams injury, which is really unfortunate. Yeah. It sounds like it's going to be about 3 months for Devin Williams. But we can get into pitchers right away, and then we can talk about guys that are options even outside of these guys that we're going to talk about. But I'm going to throw this out there. I have the Brewers starting with a 6-man starting rotation. And I'm going to throw this out there as well after I name my 6 starters. Freddie Peralta, Wade Miley, Jacob Junis, Colin Ray, Aaron Ashby, and DL Hall. So I have those guys starting as 6 starters. Now, Joe Ross is also a guy that could give you starts, and so could Jansen Junk. Jansen Junk I don't have making the roster. I do have Joe Ross on as a reliever, kind of like a Bryce Wilson, where he came over from Pittsburgh. He was previously a starter, and I have him in the bullpen. Now, another guy to keep a very, very close eye on is going to be Robert Gosser, because Pat Murphy was just asked about him after he pitched yesterday, and Pat Murphy brought up the fact that the Brewers have 2 stretches of 13 days straight in the month of April. So if I were a betting man, I'd be putting a lot of chips on Robert Gosser making his debut in April, just not on the opening day roster.
Yeah, he just I almost was like, I was this close, dude. I had the pen hovering above the paper, man. I was like, he's got to make it, dude, because I was looking at the schedule as well, and I was like, bro. And I did 6 starters as well, but for Ashby and for Joe Ross, I put starting pitcher / relief pitcher because they will kind of play both roles, in my opinion.
Yep,
They'll be long relievers, plus they'll make some starts. So I also have Freddie, Wade, Colin Ray, Joe Ross, Aaron Ashby, and DL Hall, because DL Hall is going to be a starter and Aaron Ashby is going to be a starter. So,
okay, so this is where we get into this situation. I have Abner Uribe, Bryce Wilson, Hobie Milner, Joel Payamps. Those 4 are locks for sure for the relief relief pitchers. I also have Elvis Guerrero making the roster.
Yep.
He spent enough time in the majors last year that I think he'll be able to handle it. And then with Devin Williams going out, I added Tiago Vieira. Now, there are several other guys that can factor into this as well. Trevor McGill being one. J.B. Bukowskis being another one. Those are 2 other guys that could be called up as relievers as well. This is a Brewers show, Todd. We're talking about the Brewers.
Todd, if you think it's Super Bowl or bust, you better worry about just beating the Packers first. So I'm going to say now back to the Brewers.
All right. So Trevor McGill and J.B. Bukowskis, 2 other guys to keep an eye on as potential relief options should the Brewers need to call up another pitcher. And some of these guys, like Elvis Guerrero, is a guy who can go up and down. I think even DL Hall for sure has options. Tiago Vieira, I think if he doesn't make the roster, he has to be released. But there are guys that can be sent down. And like I said, keep a very, very close eye on Robert Gosser to make his debut in April, even though he won't be, in my opinion, on the opening day roster. So is there anybody else you have for relievers that you want to throw the names out there?
I had pretty much the same list, except when I had to scratch off Devin Williams' name, which really hurt me in my soul, I added Trevor McGill. I think that he makes it. He's another high leverage guy, can go in basically any inning, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and he could give you that gas. Same thing with Abner Uribe. Hobie Milner is obviously a stud. We love Hobie Milner. Joel Payamps is a beast. Elvis Guerrero as well. Bryce Wilson is just Mr. Under. If Hobie Milner didn't exist, I think that Bryce Wilson would be Mr. Underrated. But man,
call him Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistent.
What a freaking roster the Brewers have put together here. Really underrated in my opinion. A lot of people just kind of overlooking them, thinking that just because we lost Corbin Burns, we're just going to nosedive off a cliff, which is absolutely not true. This roster is built to win. They have everything that you need, and I think that Pat Murphy's going to do an excellent, excellent job. And yeah, I'm very excited for Gosser to make his debut.
Me too. I'll throw this out there is with the relief closing situation. And Connor is asking right now, who do you guys see taking the 9th in closing situations? Pat Murphy was asked this question, and the analogy that he gave was the fireman's helmet. And basically everybody's going to wear it, and it's going to be different guys that wear it. So when you bring up Trevor McGill, he's a guy that could wear the closer hat. Joel Payamps could wear the closer hat.
Yes,
I mean, shit, in a vacuum, Elvis Guerrero could finish the 9th inning. Abner Uribe is the guy they're going to be grooming for that position when Devin Williams is no longer a Brewer in a couple of years.
Yep.
So Abner Uribe is absolutely a guy they might want to just try to get experience at that right away because they're going to groom him for that position. I trust Hobie Milner with any job under the sun when it comes to pitching a baseball.
Same.
That dude, so reliable. So I mean, pretty much anybody that you want to throw out there, and I think even Bryce Wilson got a couple multi-inning saves last year.
He did. He ate a lot of innings for us, man. And the thing about Bryce Wilson is, not shockingly, especially on Facebook, groups, Bryce Wilson would get knocked around for one game, and then people would be like, he sucked. But then, the next 5 or 6 outings, he would give up 1 earned run and strike out 6 people, and it was like,
all right,
this is what he does.
Well, that's what the thing is. It's like you only hear his name once every 6 weeks, but it's when he gives up 4 runs in 3 innings.
Yeah.
And then you don't hear about him again until another month later.
Yeah, exactly.
Todd said, I'm sitting on the Minneapolis airport listening to people say how bad Wisconsin is going to lose to Purdue tomorrow. They lost by 8 on Sunday, and they went 5 for 24 on threes. He said,
Yeah.
as for the Brewers, I'm thinking 500 is a good season. We don't have pitching. I really disagree on we don't have pitching. They don't have a lot of big names, but I think they have reliable out getters. I think the Brewers aren't going to strike as many guys out as they did, in previous seasons, especially with Brandon Woodruff probably not coming back until September, maybe.
Well,
But they have guys that can get outs.
And then on top of that, Tyler, what were we talking about a couple weeks ago? We were kind of planning this, and we're doing interviews, and then Tyler and I usually stick around for another 20, 25 minutes and just shoot the shit, right? And, we're talking about how, people don't respect the Brewers' defense. They don't take that aspect into it when they're talking about the pitching. So when you're talking about guys like D.L. Hall, who has nasty stuff, he has strikeout stuff. You have a guy like Robert Gosser who's going to be young, right? And he's gonna take his lumps early on, but a good thing for him is he's going to have an experienced defense behind him where, he may give up a hit, but we're going to cover those gaps in the outfield.
Yep.
We're going to cover those gaps in the infield. So, you got to take the defense into a factor as well. Freddie's going to eat a lot of innings. Wade Miley is a veteran, dude. That guy's going to go up there, and he's going to be a horse. Colin Array did a tremendous job for us last year for what we asked him.
People need to put a little bit of respect on Colin Array.
Agree
I know I went through it a lot last year, but –
Right. The thing that, he's going to have a full off season this year with us, and that's going to be a completely different scenario for him. And people forget about how good Aaron Ashby's stuff is too. So let's not forget about that. I think the Brewers have guys with some stuff, and we got to respect the pitching lab, man.
Absolutely. Connor said the rotation reminds me of 2018. Not many big name guys, but guys who can get it done, and that's 1,000%, 100% agree with that, Connor.
With that.
All right, so let's talk some stat leaders. Now, we did this only on offense, on batters, because we talked about it, and it's like if we're going to try to predict, who's going to lead the team in strikeouts and walks and, hits and stuff like that, all those are going to be all starting pitchers. So we just did offensive guys, so we're going to predict who we think is going to lead in batting average, home runs, RBI, stolen bases, on-base percentage, OPS, and hitting with runners in scoring position. So, Jake, who do you think is going to lead in batting average?
Well, not shockingly, I went with the guy who's kind of becoming long in the tooth. What does your sweatshirt say? Yeah, that guy.
Courtesy of Wisco Ball.
Yes, courtesy of Wisco Ball. Shout out. Batting average, I went with Yelich, and I went with him having a 292 average. I don't think we have a 300 hitter this year, but I think we have a lot of hitters around that area.
Yeah, I also have Christian Yelich at batting average. Todd said, I hope you guys are right. Just as long as we finish higher than the Cubs, we are just missing the stud to hand the ball for a big game. Fastball Freddie. We're going to get to starters of the year in just a second after we get these stat leaders. We're going to talk about some blanks of the year, and we're going to get to starters of the year. I have something very interesting to say about Freddie Peralta.
Ooh.
All right. Who do you have leading the Brewers in home runs?
Kind of a resurgent year for him. Kind of a prove-it deal that we got him for. We got him on a cheap deal. And there was an interview that we did that really kind of swayed my opinion on this. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say the interview because I want people to stick around and watch these because they're absolutely worth it and they were tremendous. Thank you to everybody who did the interviews, by the way. It took the time out of their day. But I picked Rhys Hoskins, and I picked him to have 37 home runs.
37? I also have Rhys Hoskins leading the Brewers in home runs.
Rhys Hoskins, sorry. Rhys.
All right. What about RBI? Who do you have leading the Brewers in RBI?
I went back and forth. And I went back and forth for the reason of team success. And the two people I went between was Hoskins and Adames.
Okay. Which one did you go with?
I ended up going with Hoskins.
Okay, I went with the other one.
You went with Adames.
I went with Adames.
I picked him to have 106, which would be a career high for him because his career high right now I think is 96. I wrote it down somewhere. But also – little funny tidbit about Hoskins. He has 69 postseason at bats.
Nice.
But if Adames has 100 RBIs, the Brewers are going to win 95 games.
Dude, and here's my thing. So I'm currently seeing Willy Adames batting 5th in the order.
I can see
and
that.
Looking at the way that, and I know we don't do a ton of predictions with spring training, but it looks like Garrett Mitchell might be the leadoff hitter and Christian Yelich might be batting 3rd this year. So if they do something like that and they go Mitchell, Contreras, Yelich, Hoskins, Adames, I think there's just going to be too many guys on base with opportunities for Willy Adames to knock them in.
Yep.
So I went with Willy Adames for RBI. Stolen bases. What do you have for that?
I went between two people again, Churio and Mitchell. And
Really? I have another outfielder on my list.
Do you?
I do.
Probably a Mamma Mia. But
no,
I went with Churio because he seems to have the knack for it. Oh, really? You went with Yelich?
I did.
I picked Churio at 44.
Damn.
Bro, he's a 5-tool.
You got it, man. Just Jackson Churio is the truth over here.
He is, bro. I think he is. Dude, Blake's been freaking gassing me up, dude.
All right. What about on-base percentage?
So for on-base percentage, I went with Contreras. He led the team in that last year, I believe. No, was it Yelly?
It was Yelich.
It was Yelly. I just feel like Contreras, he has a good eye. I think he's going to draw a few more walks. So I went with Contreras.
I went with Yelich again. It's going to depend on walks and strikeouts. Like if he has a good year seeing the ball at the plate, then he can draw those walks.
Yeah.
Then I could totally see your prediction of Hoskins being the RBI leader come true. And either way, I still think Yelich is going to get on base a ton for the middle of the lineup.
Yeah, that was really the big reason why I think Hoskins is going to be the cleanup. And if they do Yelly at third and they do Contreras at second and Mitchell at first, I mean, there's just going to be if you get Mitchell on base, I mean, if you hit it into the outfield, he's probably scoring, right?
Right.
He's fast. And then, Contreras was a doubles machine last year. Yelich was a singles and doubles machine last year. So Hoskins is just going to have frogs all over the pond.
Yeah. And Adames right behind him. We get a couple situations of it happening, and I just want it to happen all the time of Garrett Mitchell and Christian Yelich on base at the same time so we can watch them run bases.
Please. You know what I'd really like to see? This would be interesting, actually, because Mitchell's so fast, and I'm not saying Yelich is slow, but like he doesn't waste energy when he runs bases. Like
no, he cuts the bases so well,
dude. His strides are perfect when he runs the bases. It would be interesting to see Yelich at second and Mitchell at first. I would like to see that race because I think it would be close.
I think Mitchell would beat him.
Mitchell is so fast, dude. So freaking fast.
All right. Now OPS is a different one. So we talk. You have Contreras at on base percentage, and I have Yelich, but I have Contreras with a higher OPS, which means I have Contreras with a higher slugging percentage to make up the difference. Michael said Contreras will lead the team in batting average. I could see that. It's not a far-fetched thing to say. Like I think Contreras had like 286 last year. So if Jake is saying 292. I mean, you're talking less than 6 points of batting average.
He batted 289.
289, so even less. And then he said Yelich is the best base runner in baseball. I don't have an argument against it.
Yeah, there's an argument for it. I'll agree with that.
So OPS, I have Contreras.
OPS, I also have Contreras.
Okay.
He's pretty good at baseball.
He is. He's very good at baseball. And then for hitting with runners in scoring position, I have Contreras again.
I originally had Contreras, but if this team is going to mash and they're going to win, they're going to need Hoskins. They're going to need Hoskins to be a cleanup guy. So, and Contreras could lead in all these, honestly. That is literally how good he is with the bat.
Oh, yeah.
I think Sal is a sneaky pick to lead the team in average. I agree with that. Sal's got a great eye.
Yep. And I'll say this, like as far as Sal goes, I don't have him. He's one of the guys that I have stat projected, which we're going to get to in a little bit here. But he needs some more experience for me to be putting him as like a team leader in that category with some of the other guys that are on the team. So I don't have him leading the team, but I do have him taking a pretty decent jump from where he was last year. So that said, we can get into some of the players of the year. So we have a Gold Glove watch, starter and a reliever of the year. We have our underrated performer picks, and then we have rookies and newcomers. So let's start with Gold Glove watch. Who is your Gold Glove watch player for the year?
I mean, is it really a discussion? Is it? Bryce Terang.
That's
Bryce
who I have as
Terang,
well.
Gold Glove watch. I mean, the guy damn near won it last year. One of the main. I mean, I don't want to say it's the only reason because he had some streaks with hitting the ball. Obviously, he needs to be better in that area. But the guy had a 67 range grade, which I was looking at Baseball Savant. That's what he had. It's called
That's
range grade.
insane, dude.
Huh?
67? That's insane.
Yeah, he had a 67 range grade, and he had a lot of runs, defensive runs saved. It's just if he can get a little bit more consistent with the bat, this is just my opinion. If he gets more consistent with the bat, I think it'll give him more confidence overall in every area. Not that he's not confident, and maybe he plays a little bit more loose and he makes even more amazing plays. We don't know.
Yeah, and I'll throw this out there too when we get on the subject of hitting. I mean, Bryce Terang has a little bit of pop.
He does.
So he's I mean, the bat is there. He's got the opportunity for it. Let's jump into starters of the year. This is where I'm going to say this. Todd's not watching anymore because he had to get on a flight, but I have Freddie Peralta as my starter of the year. And I'm going to say right now, today is March 15th. I am starting the Freddie Peralta Cy Young hype train.
Oh, choo-choo. I like it.
I think if you look at how well Freddie Peralta pitched in the last 2 months of last season, especially in August when he won Pitcher of the Month for the NL, he's got ace-level stuff. And we're going to find out this year. He's going to be the opening day starter, and I think Freddie Peralta is due for a massive season.
I would agree with that, too. He was definitely trending that way, but he was not my starter of the year. I ended up going with Wade Miley. I think Wade Miley's gonna he's gonna go into the time machine and he's just gonna go out there and ball, dude. Do you want to hear my stats that I predicted for him?
Is that who you picked for your starter?
No, it's not, but I still did his stats.
I mean, I'll take it if you want to give it.
All right. These are insane if he actually does this. So I was going through all his years, which there's a lot of years on Wade Miley, by the way. And I was looking at trends and I was thinking about how he pitches and how this Brewers starting rotation, fills out, in my opinion, on my 26 man. And I was like, 13-5 is definitely doable. He was 10-4 last year. I have a 3.04 ERA. I mean, he works fast. So, and I really respect the Brewers.
With hitters, it does.
It does. And I really respect the Brewers defense. I have a 1.16 whip, 37 walks, 92 strikeouts, and a 215 opponent batting average. He's going to go crazy this year. I have Wade Miley with the resurgence.
I like it. He didn't even have a bad year last year.
No, he didn't. He got banged up.
He can find a way to pitch this entire season healthy. Like, he didn't miss a ton of time last year, but I think he missed 6 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
If he can find a way to pitch the entire season healthy, I mean, that'd be huge.
For real.
All right, for reliever, I put Hobie Milner, and this was even before the Devin Williams injury. And what I have with Hobie Milner is I believe he will pitch in pressure situations. And this is what makes Hobie Milner so important. What do you think is harder to do? To pitch with two guys on base, say second and third, with one out in a tie game in the 6th inning? Or coming into the top of the 9th with nobody on base and a 2-run lead?
You're not going to hear an argument from me. So
that's why a guy like Hobie Milner, who is so reliable, is so important. And you will hear the broadcasters talk about it all season about how good Hobie Milner is with inherited runners, and that is so important. And I think it's higher pressure to pitch with guys on base in a close game, when you're inheriting runners, than it is to come in with the bases empty in the 9th inning. They're playing your song, and you just got to come in, get 3 outs with nobody on base, and that's it. Those situations in those 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th innings sometimes are higher pressure than the 9th. So I have Hobie Milner as my reliever of the year player to watch.
Yeah, you're not going to hear an argument from me. I also have Hobie Milner. Hobie's just a stud. He's one of those guys that really gets overlooked. When you make comparisons to other teams, I mean, you look at guys in the Bucks that get disrespected and they have a tougher job than people realize. You think of Pat Connaughton right away, right?
Sure.
And obviously, me and you, we're big Pat Connaughton guys. We're big Hobie Milner guys. I mean, yeah, you can make a comparison on every team. You can go on the Badgers football team, the Badgers basketball team.
Yeah.
On the Badgers basketball team, a guy that gets overlooked. I mean, he's a star, but he gets overlooked about his impact. And I talked about it a lot on Wednesday. And we saw it at the beginning of the game today was Chucky Hepburn. His impact on the court is really overlooked, but because he doesn't score 20 points a game, people don't respect him enough.
The phrase that they use all the time on Bally when they're talking about a guy like Pat Connaughton is chop wood, carry water. You need guys that are going to chop wood and carry water. Hobie Milner's one of those guys.
100%. And he's just down to earth, dude. He's just a guy's guy. So how do you not cheer for Hobie Milner? He's a stud. I predicted him to have 69 strikeouts. That's the only stat I'm going to give you, but nice.
All right. Who are your underrated performer picks for the year? I did one pitcher and one position player.
I only did one guy because if I would have did another guy, I would have took my newcomer away. But my underrated performer, I went with the guy that would have been the underrated performer last year, and I did Andrew Monasterio.
That's a good one.
He plays a lot of positions. You pointed it out first, and then everybody in America started realizing it. But the smile, man. I mean, that alone makes him underrated performer because having happy people around you makes you happy, makes you play better, makes you looser. And he was pretty good last year. He went through his struggles batting-wise, but he also went on some crazy hot streaks. And again, multi-position, so he allows, Pat Murphy, the new Brewers manager, I guess I should say with quotations, to have a lot of flexibility, but absolutely cannot replace guys like this. It hurts when they leave.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it with one of the guests that we had on that we interviewed. We're going to talk about some of those impacts. For underrated performers, first of all, I put Elvis Aguero. He's just another one of those guys who is going to pitch in. He's going to pitch in those games where you're not gonna talk about him because he's not going to pitch the high leverage and he's not going to be the starter. So he's just going to be one of those guys. And then the bullpen took care of the rest of the game. Like he's going to be one of those guys that's kind of not brought up a lot, but a guy that's necessary. Yeah. And then as a position player, I'm going to throw out Joey Wiemer.
Ooh.
Now, this is a big if Sal Frelick does end up playing some third base during the regular season, Joey Wiemer is going to be an important part of the outfield. Now, also, I do think that Christian Yelich will get some chunks of time at DH to try to preserve his back.
He will.
So that, those two things combined, if you get into a situation where, say, you're starting Sal Frelick at third base, or maybe you're looking to switch, a right-handed bat in, and you bring in a Joey Wiemer, you can use Sal Frelick to replace him, and then still have guys in the outfield, and you can use Sal Frelick at third base as a defensive substitution. Mm-hmm. And if you bring Joey Wiemer into a game late, you have the defense that you've been talking about. Mm-hmm. Joey Wiemer, we saw it last year. He played fantastic defense.
Dude, he's borderline Gold Glove too.
That's totally fair. So as an underrated performer pick, I do have Joey Wiemer on the bubble of the roster, but over the course of the season, he's going to spend a lot of time, if not most of the time, on the major league roster. And because Jackson Chourio is the new shiny toy, and we're hoping to see a healthy Garrett Mitchell, and Sal Frelick is the Italian stallion that's super fun to watch.
Yeah.
And then Christian Yelich, who had the resurgent season last year, Joey Wiemer could kind of get lost in the shuffle. And I just want to throw it out there to see guys that could be a underrated performer. All right. So we have rookies and newcomers. So let's do rookies. Who's your rookie player to watch for the year?
I mean, Jackson Chourio.
Yeah.
It's you want to be like different, right? But there sometimes they're just like there's answers right in front of you. Like this is the answer, and Jackson Chourio being the second or third, whatever goddamn list you look at, rated, minor league player in all of baseball. I mean, it's hard not to get excited about that, especially for a small city like Milwaukee, right?
Yep. So I have written on here that Chourio is the easy answer. I just want to throw this out there. Keep an eye on Joey Ortiz.
Yep.
Just going to throw that out there. Newcomers. I did a pitcher and a position player. So who are your newcomers to watch for the year?
So I actually picked is he technically still a rookie? I believe he is. I picked Joey Ortiz for my newcomer because I feel like he has he has a role on this team that's etched out. And when I think about Joey Ortiz, and I talk about defense a lot with this team, he just feels like a Brewer already to me. Kind of like how Tucker Kraft just fit right into the Packer, nation. He likes to hunt, he likes to drink beer, and he likes to run people over and score touchdowns. I mean, that's perfect, right? And you think about Joey Ortiz, the guy likes to get on base, he likes to play defense, and he just seems like a cool guy to just have a conversation with, honestly. So I picked Joey Ortiz, play multiple positions, and you know what? I think Brewers fans need him and DL Hall to hit to kind of calm him down from the Corbin Burns stuff too. So
the newcomer that I put on is DL Hall, his trade mate.
Ah.
So for a newcomer to watch, I put DL Hall, and then obviously Rhys Hoskins is going to be a really important part of the season.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, so we're going to talk some stat projections here, and then we're going to get into playing the interviews that we've done over the last week. So we each have 2 position players, and then 1 starter and 1 reliever. Jake, tell me who your 2 position players are, and then give me the stats you have projected for them.
All right. So the first person that I picked was actually Jackson Churio.
Oh, nice.
Excuse me.
Connor said that Ortiz is also a Packers fan.
Dude, see, it feels right when I was
Meant to
watching
be.
his interviews. I was like, bro, he feels like a Brewer, dude. So just feels right. I picked Churio. I was looking at spring training. I was looking at all his splits, and like the thing with baseball, dude, is on top of us doing all of our football stuff, we're doing baseball in the middle of it. You have to rub the eyes a little bit.
In the middle of basketball season.
Dude, so many numbers, dude. I swear to God, at one point in my life, I'm going to start talking in numbers. It's going to be awkward, but stick around for it. So with looking at it, there's actually a split when you split up his stats versus older pitchers and younger pitchers because of, the minor league baseball stuff. But I'm not going to get into it. I just thought that was really interesting, and I had to say that part. I wrote it in here to remind you. So for 2023, this guy's going to go ham. Okay.
2024?
What's that?
2024?
2024. Sorry, I wrote 2023 stats right here. Sorry, I was reading 2023. So 2024. So he's going to hit 280. Oh, yeah, just wait. He's going to have a 383 on base.
Damn.
A 465 slug. An 805 OPS. 22 home runs. 71 RBIs, 44 stolen bases. I already told you that number, and 26 extra base hits outside of home runs.
So you're basically saying that Jackson Churio in year 1 is going to have the season that Christian Yelich had last year.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, I'm here for it.
I mean, a couple points down here and there, but
right.
He's got the speed and he's going to get the steals, man. And baseball is kind of starting to favor offense a little bit more, I think.
They're trying to.
They're trying to. So I think some of these numbers will get a little bit more inflated as we go on.
Interesting. Who else you got?
You want me to do my next one?
Yeah, give me your other position player right away.
So my next position player is William Contreras. I mean, guy is just a straight-up stud. So if you remember, I have Christian Yelich hitting 292. I have Contreras very, very close at 290. So I have him at a 290. That 1 point better than he was the year before. I have a 380 on base percentage. I really think he's going to have a really good eye and draw some more walks. A 470 slugging percentage, an 844 OPS, 61 extra base hits, 20 home runs, and 84 RBIs. So I think he's going to absolutely rake this year. I don't think any of those numbers are egregious, by the way. I think
that all sounds good.
Definitely in the wheelhouse for William Contreras. You want to do your position players yet?
Yep, I'm going to rip mine off. Okay. So I picked a couple of young lefties. I have Sal Frelick and Bryce Terang. I based my Sal Frelick projections on 558 plate appearances. So I have Sal with a 268 batting average. That's a tick up. I think he was at 246 last year, I want to say. Yeah. A 345 on base, a 390 slugging for a 735 OPS. I think that's pretty respectable. That's honestly like Tyrone Taylor's career numbers there. So Sal Frelick's first full year in the big leagues, if he's already on pace with Tyrone Taylor was giving, that trade is not going to bother us.
Yep. Agreed.
I have him down for 26 doubles. A lot of that's going to be hustle, and he's going to slap some balls to left field that are going to just get down there, and he's going to hustle over to second base.
Yep.
I have him down for 9 home runs,
Okay.
60 RBI, and 25 stolen bases.
I can see it.
And then I also threw in walks 53, strikeouts 81, and 66 runs scored.
Okay.
Bryce Terang, I based it on 500 plate appearances, maybe a little bit less than Sal, just because I think Sal's going to bat higher in the lineup than Bryce Terang does.
Yeah.
For Bryce, I put him at a 232 batting average, 310 on base percentage, 350 slugging, 650 OPS, 660 OPS, 14 doubles, 10 home runs, 46 RBI, 32 stolen bases for Bryce Terang.
Mm-hmm.
He had 26 last year, so with a little bit more freedom, I think Bryce Terang outdoes his number from last year. Also, Bryce Terang spent about a month in AAA in the middle of the season last year.
True.
And then I have him down for 42 walks, 85 strikeouts, and 59 runs scored. So give me your starting pitcher projections that you have.
So for starting pitcher, I picked DL Hall. Very interesting prospect. And he definitely has some stuff, and he has some swag, man. I'll tell you that. So a lot of these young guys coming up, man, baseball's going to get a lot more swag. So I have him at a 3.40 ERA. I have him at a 1.136 WHIP, 180 strikeouts. I almost did 200, but I don't know if he'll get all the innings. I know he's going to get a lot of starts, but I think that he'll switch in between here and there. I have him at 44 walks, which isn't a high number. It could have been higher because he does have some control issues from time to time. But I'm trusting the Brewers, just like the defense. I'm trusting the Brewers pitching lab, man. And I'm just gonna go with it and see how it goes. And opponent batting average, I have at 232. 232.
I did Freddie Peralta, and like I said, I'm starting the Freddie Peralta Cy Young high train.
Mm-hmm.
So I have him for 56 walks, for 213 strikeouts, a 213 opponent batting average, a 113 WHIP, and a 297 ERA.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Dude, big things for Freddie Peralta. He's gonna be a monster this year.
I mean, hey, I'm on board. I'll have to stop screwing his name up at some point, but
Yeah, right. Stop calling him Willie.
I corrected it in the middle of last year. I just kept doing it. I don't know what the heck was going on. But,
I mean, you called Malik Beasley, Mikhail Beasley for like half the season too.
Dude, I did it like 4 times in a row during the same game, and I was like, dude, you need to take a timeout. I just call him by his first name now, just Malik.
All right. Who's your reliever?
So my reliever of the year, I went with Abner Uribe. Flamethrower, again, a guy with some swag, and probably the quickest guy I've ever seen come up from the minor leagues to the major leagues.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just like, hey, I throw really fast, so I'm just going to go up there and we'll call it a day. Like, okay, fine.
80 innings in the minors? Fucking send them.
No worries. So I have him. So we did this one a little bit differently because you have to do like appearances and not record and stuff. So appearances, I have him at 67. That was before the Williams trade, but I just kept it the same. I think it'll be around the same anyways.
Just might change the inning that he pitches.
Yeah. So 67 innings or games, I apologize. 80 strikeouts, 42 walks. He does have some control issues as well. So hopefully it's not as bad this year, but he's got some crazy stuff, man. So I mean, honestly, if people are up there not swinging and he's getting a tight strike zone, I could see that happening, which is insane. A 1.11 WHIP and a Mendoza line opponent batting average. So 200 for non-baseball people.
All right. I have UL Piams. I have him down for 63 appearances, a 3.35 ERA, 19 walks, 69 strikeouts.
Nice.
A 115 WHIP and a 230 opponent batting average. I don't think he'll be quite as dominant as he was last year, but still a really, really good late inning reliever.
I agree with that.
All right. Are you ready to get into some guest interviews that we've put together over the last week and a half?
I am. I'm always ready for the interviews. The interviews are fun.
All right, so we're going to start with Javik Blake. He is the AA media play-by-play broadcaster for the Biloxi Shuckers. We recorded this interview with him last week. Guest is Javik Blake, the media play-by-play guy for the Biloxi Shuckers. I had the pleasure of meeting him when I was down in Alabama for the Senior Bowl. He invited me out to the Shucker Stadium, which was gorgeous, by the way. And he was gracious enough to jump on with our Brewers primer. So we're going to ask him a handful of questions and get his input on the upcoming season.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Always happy to hop on. Always a fun time with you guys.
First of all, welcome back. I'm very jealous Tyler didn't get to go down there, but I will get down there eventually. It's on the bucket list now.
There we go. And every time we do this prospect, it seems to be from a different location. Like I was out with family for Christmas. We did it there. I was in a hotel on the road. Now I'm in my apartment. So I think we just got to keep it up. I got to keep finding random places to be in here.
We got to start filling out a bingo card or something, man.
We'll get you in the press box with the casino behind you. We'll get one of those in there.
There we go. Hey, we'll just do globe trotting around the Southern League and then randomly hopping on.
That'd be awesome.
I like it. All right. So far into spring training, we're going to talk some Brewers now. So far into spring training, who's a prospect you see trending towards the roster?
Well, I don't know if it was for the roster, and as of the day of recording it, the first cuts have been made of spring training. But the guy who really impressed me was Brock Wilken. It's ridiculous what that man did early on in spring training. Now, I know there was no shot he was ever making the big league roster. Like if he hit 1,000, maybe, but nobody's ever hitting 1,000 in spring training. But I think a guy like Brock Wilken is really a guy that pops off the page, not so much to make the big league roster, but just a guy that has announced like, hey, he's here with the Brewers. And for this to be his first spring training and for this to be upcoming his first full season of minor league baseball, to do what he's done early on in spring training is just incredibly impressive. And he was a guy that we had at the tail end of last year in Biloxi. And to talk with him then and to see what his sound bites have been during spring training, the kid's got a great head on his shoulders. And you forget that like he hasn't been playing pro ball for 5 years. I forget that he's going into his first full season of professional baseball. So what he's done early on, whether he ends up with us to start the year or he ends up in Nashville to start the year, he's just a guy who's incredibly impressive day in and day out. And this spring training, really looks hopefully to be a springboard towards just an incredible 2024 season.
Maybe spending a lot of time by you, but by the looks of it, maybe not.
Yeah.
So this is more of a fan-related question. What would you say to people who spend a lot of time whining about the results of spring training games?
Don't. It's really easy. Don't. I mean, it's one of those things where the only big thing in spring training is making sure everybody gets their at-bats, all your arms are ready to go, and knock on wood, nobody gets hurt. That's the biggest part about spring training. It's all about getting fine-tuned for the season. And wins and losses or whatever. I'm excited when it gets late in the games and I'm seeing the guys that I saw last year in Biloxi, who I had with me last year in Biloxi, getting the chance to play and getting a chance to showcase their stuff on the big league side. And whether it's wins or losses, it doesn't matter. Really it's all about getting ready, making sure ready to go. World Series aren't won in April or aren't won in March, February aren't won in February. So, it's all about getting healthy and getting ready for the season, and however guys best get ready for the season is the way to go. We've seen guys who are terrific in spring training be terrible in the regular season. We've seen guys who look awful in spring training win MVP and Cy Young awards. So early on in spring training, it is just that it's training, and you got to remember that much. Though everyone's excited baseball's back, and everyone wants to make sure the Brewers are winning as much as possible.
That was an interesting statement you made. It's almost like we made that direct correlation with every sport, Tyler. It's pretty weird. Almost like it's true all the time. So this is the next thing. Have you learned anything new about Joey Ortiz or DL Hall?
I've just read up a little bit on it. When Corbin Burns first got traded, I was like, oh, the Bowie Bay Sox or the Aberdeen Ironbird Stars better be getting traded for, because I'm selfish and I want, fun players in the Biloxi Shuckers. But, seeing who they got back, it's two real good guys. DL Hall's stuff is filthy. I mean, how are you supposed to hit it? It's ridiculous. And Joey Ortiz, too, to see his defensive ability from last year and see what he did in the Orioles organization is just incredible to see. And I think that's one of the big things of what they're getting back. You traded away 1 year of Corbin Burns for potentially 12 years of control with Joey Ortiz and DL Hall. And you got Hall, who could give you 6 great years if everything pans out. And Ortiz, who looks terrific defensively. And that's something that I think Brewers fans should be excited about. And especially with the influx of talent coming up through the system, the more young guys, the better. And I think they really have a lot of real good young talent to begin with before the trade. And after, it's just even better and even more impressive at the amount of youth they've churned out of this system.
So last year we had kind of a under the radar guy, Andrew Monasterio, a guy who really wasn't on our radar as far as prospects are concerned. Who's a player that you think could have an Andrew Monasterio-like impact in 2024?
Well, now, for a guy who's under the radar who could be a lot of fun, it's Wes Clark. That's the first one. Wes Clark's just an incredible guy, unreal power, hits the balls to all field, punish baseballs all spring training along in the early parts of it. But, one of the big things as well, and one of the things that gets you play at the big league level, and we've talked about this at length prior on Tyler Black's ability to play 7 different positions, but that positional versatility hanging around in AAA is really important to crack the big league roster. And I think 2 guys who really embody that, who I saw last year in Biloxi, are Noah Campbell and Isaac Collins. Isaac Collins gets on base more than anybody I've ever seen. He had a 420 OBP last year, walked at a 20% clip, and struck out at a 14% clip. So he's a guy who likely slots in probably in AAA to start the year. But he's a guy who can play just about every different position. He played up the middle. He played third a little bit. He can play both corners in the outfield. And then Noah Campbell is a guy who can quite literally play everything. Now, if you look on his baseball reference page, it says he's quite literally played every position, but that's because in Carolina one game, he did in fact play all 9 positions. So he has copy for it in his life. And he does have 1 save in his life, but that was part of a thing where he was just playing all 9 positions in one game. But Noah Campbell is another guy who really hit the ball well in Biloxi last year. And he's another guy who can play all 7 positions. We're going to take out pitcher and catcher. But can play 7 different positions. And that positional versatility is huge at the big league level because it's how you find yourself in the lineup every single day. That's why Tyler Black learning to play first base is so huge. He's a big league ready bat, but it's just figuring out where he goes defensively. And I think the more positions you can play, especially in modern day baseball in 2024, is incredibly important to you guys in this system who can play multiple positions. Noah Campbell, Isaac Collins, 2 of those guys who not only have good bat to ball skills. Collins last year at 27, 28, 29 stolen bases and a 420 plus OBP. I mean, those are 2 vitally important things. And that, might not, that will help you get on a big league roster and help crack that and find you playing time. Even if, your primary positions are clogged up, you can play a position, go for it. It helps you get at bats.
Calm down, man. You were cooking. Oh my goodness. I could have just literally listened to you for an hour talk right there. That was
Wes Clark was my guy. I'm glad you brought him up. The other 2 definitely going to put them on the radar now.
Well, now the big thing with Wes Clark is Wes Clark's power is ridiculous. I mean, that is a grown man. You look at him, and that is a grown human being. And I think he's one of the guys, and I know he's getting some time at catcher here with the Brewers in spring training. But if he can play catcher and first, the big thing for him last year were strikeouts. But, he still talked about it early on in spring training this year in a couple interviews that he's really trying to hammer the slider on those off-speed pitches. I think it's a really big thing for him this year because if he's able to cut down that strikeout rate from, say, around 30 to around 22, 23, the league average, I mean, he hit 27 home runs in a league where you don't hit 27 home runs. And you do that, you cut down that strikeout rate, put a couple more balls in play, and that power, I mean, that is a grown man swinging the bat.
I like it. So you talked a lot about positional versatility. Now I want to focus on one position, outfield mainly. What do you think of the Brewers' system outfield depth?
Unfair. Unfair. It's ridiculous how many they have. I mean, you look at it, and you're looking at who you play in the outfield this year if you're the Brewers, and you look at who's going to be in AAA. It's ridiculous. I mean, you have Jackson Churio, who's otherworldly, all-world prospect, still a teenager at the time of this recording. He's probably going to turn 20 years old by the time this thing comes out. But you look at him, you look at Garrett Mitchell, you look at Sal Frelick, you look at, Christian Yelich has to play there. You got him out there. And that's an all-star MVP caliber outfielder filled with so many different young guys. Joey Weimer's out there. Garrett Mitchell's going to be back. I mean, that is an embarrassing amount of riches, and especially if you can develop the bat on the couple of guys that are there, and being in the big leagues last year and developing that bat and finishing out their development at the big league level is really big. You add that, and what are you going to do? I mean, it's a great position to be in if you're the Brewers of who do we plug in on a daily basis. But I don't want to be the one in charge of that decision. I just want to see how it plays out.
One other guy that I want to throw out there, and this is maybe a guy that you'll see this year, is Luis Lara. I don't know if you have any thoughts on him at all.
Very excited to see him in Biloxi. That will be a lot of fun. Now, obviously, he got kind of a cup of coffee, I believe, in Wisconsin last year. I mean, yeah, I think you got in Wisconsin last year.
I think so, yeah.
Coffee. A cup of coffee in Appleton. We'll obviously start the year there, but, man, something about the Brewers and young baby outfielders that are like 18, 19 years old who are ridiculous are so much fun to watch. And I've seen some of his stuff, and, man, when he gets to Biloxi, I mean, it's gonna be so much fun.
So switching gears a little bit, what are your thoughts on the minor league baseball collective bargaining agreement that they've agreed to?
Well, no, I have not seen it in particular, but, you know, I think it's one of the big things and one of the really great things that's come out the past couple of years on the minor league baseball side. It's actually pretty funny. TJ Shook, who was a pitcher with us last year and is with the Brewers in spring training right now, is actually the player rep for the Brewers organization. So each of the 30 minor league each of the 30 organizations have a player rep on the big league side, but also a player rep on the minor league side. And, you know, you hear the horror stories of what minor league baseball has been like for so many years. And I think it's really great. You know, now they get housing, they get, you know, their full pay year round. And I think that these are all of a couple of things that are just really, really big. And it's a big credit to not only the Players Association, a big credit to Major League Baseball, and a big credit of minor league baseball for upgrading these standards for players. And I think it's massive because one of the big things is obviously, you know, the better you sleep, the better, you know, you have access to nutrition and stuff like that, the better you're going to be as a player. And being able to take care of your players like that in the way that teams do is vitally important. I can see it firsthand, you know, with how the Brewers treat their guys on a day in, day out basis. And I think it's part of the reason why so many of these guys are so talented in their system. Not only are they great players, but when you're treated really well, when you're surrounded by great people, and when you're taken care of in a really good way, that all plays out on the field. You know, you're allowed to not have to worry about the other things and just go and play baseball. And when you're able to do that in the mental side of things, I mean, that's so massive. And, you know, speaking of the mental side too, this doesn't even have to do with the CBA, but the Brewers do imply like mental health coaches on their minor league staff and on their major league staff. And for the Brewers to do that is just incredible to see. As again, the better you are mentally, the better you're going to be as a player. And be able to see that on a day in, day out basis is just incredible.
Well, and this is just my opinion. I'm sure you guys will agree, but in my opinion, baseball is the toughest mental sport in all of the major sports. You got so many variables to think about. I mean, just think about going up to bat, right? And you're trying to hit a slider, and the arm angle is exactly the same as the fastball. I mean, you got to be able to mentally see a little tick in his hand, and it's incredible what these guys can do. I could not do it, and I will never try. But
that's
I
why
do not want to embarrass myself.
Either.
So there's a lot of guys that do want to do it, and they're going to be in AA this year, and you're going to be in AA this year. So I want to know, we want to know, everybody wants to know, who is the player you're most excited for in AA this year?
We're going to tick off the big three right now of the potentials. Jacob Mizorowski, Brock Wilken, Eric Brown Jr. Without a doubt, those guys will potentially be with us. Miz finished out the season last year before he got shut down. Wilken was with us for the final week. Same with Eric Brown Jr. And those are three guys who I would expect to probably be with us to start the year. But there are a couple just really fun under-the-radar guys that the Brewers have signed either over the offseason or have just had in their system that are going to be really fun. There's one guy that we potentially will have whose name is Nick Merkel. His nickname's the Big Mammal, and he throws a hammer knuckle curve. I've never seen a hammer knuckle curve. He posted, I forget who it was, somebody on Instagram. I think it's at Brewers Farm, posted a video of him, and it's downright disgusting. I'm like, what are we doing? So to see him will be really, really cool. And we'll have a couple of guys up from High A this year that finished the year out in Wisconsin. A couple of guys in the bullpen side of things. The Brewers have made a couple minor league signings. Guy like Chavez Young, who leads all of minor league baseball in outfield assists since he was signed back about 6-7 years ago. He was with the Pirates last year, split between AA and AAA. Ernesto Martinez will likely be back with us in AA, and Ernesto's just a ball of fun. And honestly, I'm really excited this year to just work with our new coaching staff. Joe Aralt's our brand new manager this year, and just from a brief interaction with him when he went to the ballpark to drop some stuff up before he headed out to Arizona, and everything I've heard from everybody in Appleton is that guy's just going to be a joy of fun to see and to work with throughout the year. So on the player side, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun guys. Caleb Bowman will likely be back as well. He's one of the greatest stories in baseball. He was pitching professionally in Germany 2 years ago, and he's pitching in AA. But to be able to work with Joe this year as our new manager and to see the guys that we bring through, it's just going to be a lot of fun. And throughout the system, it's just going to be a lot of fun. If Luis Warrick comes up, oh, buddy. It's gonna be fun.
I'm going to preface this by saying I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but he's doing things that like Jackson Chourio was doing before he was getting to where he is.
He was. And I think one of the big things, though, is just constantly asserting yourself at the level. And I think that's super important. And the big thing is, and this is for anybody who's coming up to AA this year from High A, that jump and that gap between High A and AA is so big. So not only do you have to assert yourself in High A, but you have to assert yourself in AA. I mean, heck, we saw Jackson Chourio and Tyler Black both struggle in AA. Xavier Warren's another guy who struggled in AA before he hit 325 the rest of the year, starting on August 1st. Had I looked at his numbers on Fango. It was like a 160 WRC plus. I almost fell out of my chair. But you have those guys who struggle, who are really good players, who those struggle a little bit adjusting to AA just because that jump is so big. So I think for Laura, he's a guy who the Brewers, again, like Chourio, like Caro, have the luxury of taking their time. And I think that's something we'll see from them this year. But selfishly, Laura up in AA would be a lot of fun. But I'd like to see Laura do good things in High A, and Chris Maring and Appleton having a little bit of fun with Laura up there before he makes his way to AA and hopefully a very long time in the big leagues.
For sure. So I had the pleasure of helping break the news of the King Cakes being the Shuckers alternate mascot for 4 games this year. If you had to give the Brewers a small sample alternate, what would it be?
So I was thinking of this because obviously the big ones would be like the cheese curds or the brats or something like that. But I was like, but what's something that if you live in Wisconsin, you would absolutely love? And as someone who lived in Wisconsin for a summer working in Fond du Lac, I was like, what about you just do full out spotted cow alternate jerseys? Just full out spotted cow for your alternate jerseys. Because I would buy that in a heartbeat.
So nice.
That would be so unique, so off the wall. But there are so many.
Get another sponsor with it right away.
Exactly. Just slap a couple cows on there. Take the Udder Tuggers things down from Wisconsin and just write spotted cow.
Have you seen? There's I don't remember what city it's from, but they're doing Dairy Daddies. Have you seen that?
I did see that in Danville, Virginia. That was interesting. I'm still an Udder Tuggers fan at heart, but that's a name, and it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. I don't know what else I can say about it, publicly without getting in trouble. It's just so funny. But with the Brewers, I mean, there's so many different things you could do. You call them the fish fries. You call them. So many different ways you could go. But yeah, Udder Tuggers.
The Mallards, they did the old-fashioned jerseys. They made the world's biggest old-fashioned. They did that.
I did see that. And I mean, even the Timber Rattlers and the team I used to work for, the Fond du Lac Dock Spiders, did the Lake Winnebago Shanty Men, which is another one. So I mean, there are so many good minor league baseball one-off team names. And if they did it to the bigs, I mean, that'd be hilarious. But the City Connect jerseys for the Brewers are already so good. I think if that's the closest we're going to get to one of those really fun. I even got the T-shirt on with it.
Attaboy.
But even if you get one of those are just so fun. But anything to connect to the local identity and the city and the state, I think is really cool, really fun. And yeah, I mean, plus if you do the spotted cows and everyone walks in, you get a 6-pack of spotted cow on the way out.
Oh, sold out game every single time. Every single one would be sold out.
You got to give it to you when you're going in the parking lot. There's when you tailgate, you can demolish them before you even walk in.
That's smart.
That'd be a rowdy crowd.
All
right, Javik, thanks
for
for being a part of
this
this primer. Really excited for it and appreciate that you could be a part of it. So thanks again for taking the time to hop on with us.
No, thanks so much for having me. You guys are an absolute blast. It's always a lot of fun.
All right, so there you have it. Our first recorded interview that we had. Javik Blake, he knows what he's talking about, especially when it comes to prospect.
Yeah.
Obviously, being the AA play-by-play guy, and Javik's super fun to talk to. And he was really cool to meet in person, and I really appreciate him letting me do a show at the Biloxi Shucker Stadium when I was down there for the Senior Bowl at the end of January and the beginning of February. So I really thank him for that. And if you have a chance, and if you are anywhere nearby that you can go see the Biloxi Shucker Stadium. Like, seriously, it is absolutely gorgeous. I can't overstate like how gorgeous of a ballpark it is. It's seriously like right out of a video game. Like, there's a giant MGM casino behind it. A little bit farther down, there's like a Hard Rock cafe casino. So there's like a giant neon guitar, and it's right across the street from the Gulf of Mexico. I seriously cannot overstate like how gorgeous of a stadium the Shuckers have.
Yeah. My experience with Blake is he's always been a super down-to-earth guy, always willing to help out or give us a couple extra minutes or a couple extra sound bites, and he always keeps it professional. So I appreciate that about him. We kind of put him on the spot with the Dansville Dairy Daddies, but
I put a few people on the spot with it. So in the interviews that we have, there's a couple more. And the next two, Jake hasn't seen yet because I recorded them last week when Jake was at work. He wasn't able to get on these interviews. So the next two that come up, Jake has not seen yet.
No, this is going to be awesome.
So we're going to start with Tim Dillard, who I had the pleasure of interviewing last week. And as always, Tim Dillard is a lot of fun. He is exactly in person like you think he would be. And interviewing him, he's the same dude. He seems like he'd be a funny dude, and he is absolutely a funny dude.
Yeah.
For the 2024 Brewers primer, next guy we have is Tim Dillard, Bally Sports extraordinaire, the orange paper man who is, I confirmed before the show, switching to a yellow goldish paper this year. So I want to ask you a handful of questions. I leaned a little more towards pitcher-related questions because we're going to have Vinney Rottino on also as well. I'm going to ask him a little bit more position player-related questions. So You being the former pitcher, I figured I would throw you some pitcher questions. So first off, what did you think of the Corbin Burnes trade, and has your opinion on it changed since it happened?
I mean, you can't keep everybody, it's hard to do that. And I think they saw a package put together of players that were big league ready, and they went for it. One thing the Brewers have done a great job of is developing pitchers. And it's not always straight from the bottom all the way to the top. Sometimes they have to go get those guys. People forget Freddie Peralta was with the Mariners, I believe, before he came over. So, like, they see the talent, and then they're like, all right, well, we can refine it and make it better. So I think that's what they were trying to get with DL Hall. So I get it, but at the same time, they'd have to pay him a ton of money. I mean, they will.
Seeing what Wheeler got, it's like, ooh, that makes it a little more understandable.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's unless you're the Yankees or the Dodgers, clearly, that's the way it goes. And I always find it interesting too that here's a guy that in Corbin Burnes won Cy Young, one of the top. I think he was rated the fourth best starter or something, or second anyway by MLB something. So you have a guy that's one of the elites in all of baseball. And he didn't even know he was being traded, right? Like, he didn't even know. I mean, that just shows, unless you are, I mean, I don't even think, unless you have like a signed 10-year contract or whatever with no trade clauses, like, you don't know what's going to happen or what anyone's going to do. So that just kind of shows you the volatility of being a baseball player. And so I'm sure he would have loved to stay in Milwaukee, but at the same time, he probably wanted a ton of money that Milwaukee's like, we could go get 7 players. And if one of them can put up, semi-close numbers to yours, then we that's good for us. So I get why they did it. And again, if they're not the Yankees or the Dodgers or Red Sox, like this is how you roll. You have to do it on a budget.
Yeah, that's tough. Who's a guy you think could be like an underrated performer candidate for the bullpen and for the starting rotation?
Let me see. Who would be a good one? Was it Junis that pitched the other day? His slider?
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable slider.
Yeah.
And I think he actually threw that thing like 60% of the time last year. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I like JB Bukowskis, honestly. I think his stuff plays. He throws strikes, and they're surrounding him with an amazing defense. I mean, I don't know how they're going to try and use him. I don't know if they just strictly see him as like a, I don't know where he's going to fit. Bullpen's really tight, so I don't really know what they're thinking in terms, but Bukowskis, his stuff just is really good. It's such late movement, low 90s, maybe get up to mid 90s, but it's just a great sinker. This is the sinker that everybody in their mind thinks they have that throws a sinker, and he actually has it. Like the action on his ball is phenomenal. So I could see him doing some really special things, especially you start having that kind of defense around you in the infield. You're turning in, you're a ground ball is going to be an out. It doesn't matter where it's hit. So I would like for him to see more time this year with the crew.
Even if it's Sal Frelick playing third base?
Yeah, I'm still okay with that. I mean, guy's young. He's got some great tutelage. So he worked out with Dustin Pedroia in the offseason.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I mean, that's just really cool. And I think all of this stuff starts with a conversation of how can we make this team better? What's it going to look like? And it's risk reward. Okay, well, here's a small risk here. Let's say it doesn't come along like they want. Boom. He's in the outfield. They got Monasterio can play third. I think you can do a lot of different things, but it's going to be centered around defense. I think that is what they wanted to do when they brought in Pat Murphy, just moved him up a notch in the coaching ranks to keep that same vibe, that same temperature of how are we going to win games? What's that look like? Let's keep it, let's set it. And it's built around defense. And so I think that's what you're seeing. You're going to see some really good infield plays like we saw last year. And so, boom, if you're a sinker guy, like I think Milwaukee's a great place to be.
Yeah, for sure. What was your thoughts, your reaction to Brandon Woodruff being brought back?
I love Woody. Woody's awesome. Former teammate. Now I get to mess with him as a broadcaster. I'm glad I get to continue to do that. That he's going to be with the Brewers. I texted him right away and just asked, what I'm allowed to share or not share. But he was telling me he had already been throwing. Everything is going great. If things are not going well or progressing at all, I doubt they go out and sign him to a 2-year deal. I think the Brewers kept him and said, listen, we can't extend you this contract, at this time. Let's wait and see. And hopefully we're not going to break any of those ties. It sounds like Woodruff's talked to a lot of teams too. There was a lot of interest, which, my goodness, why wouldn't there be?
All right.
So to me, I think the Brewers were still involved in that. He didn't share that with me, but I think they probably kept tabs on him. And then when the Brewers got to look at the medical, they're like, this is great. And so you end up paying the same money for 2 years as you would for 1 year, knowing that you're obviously not going to get a full year out of him, but maybe you do get something, in late summer. So I don't know. I think it's amazing. And what I love about Woodruff, he's such a genuine guy. He is the same guy with his family as he is with the media, as he is in the dugout or the bullpen or in the clubhouse. And guys like that, people gravitate towards him. And that's what he does in the clubhouse for the Brewers. He's a guy that people gravitate towards. And now he's reached the level of he has a chance to share all that wisdom with people. And now he's going to be able to rehab and do everything in-house where the Brewers can monitor that, and he can be a part of that team. Good. The new guys coming in, the guys that have been here. I'm happy for Woodruff. I'm happy for the Brewers.
Yeah, he doesn't even have to be the old guy either because Wade Miley's still around.
Yeah. They probably don't let him forget that either.
It's Pat Murphy was joking about him being 50 the other day. That's hilarious. The dynamic between Pat Murphy and Ricky Weeks and how they handle the dugout.
And Ricky is so he's always been this way. He's just very focused. And to him to play as long as he did and then get in the front office to see how things work. There's a certain level, and you probably saw this again with Craig Counsell. You could say the same thing.
Yeah.
Once you get behind the curtain a little bit, you're like, I have ideas, but
Yeah.
Ricky, knowing the ins and outs of where the organization's been, how it's moved. He knows everybody behind the scenes too, because there's so many people involved when it comes to a major league organization, and he has a chance to be able to weave through all of that. And now he's going, okay, this is how I want things to run. This is what I've seen. This is what I've noticed. This is what we do well. This is what we got to improve on. So now he's hands on. So, I mean, he's excited, and you could tell just in his press conference.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I talked to him. I saw him at the winter meetings. I talked to him for like an hour. I wasn't doing any business there. I was just there for sport because I live in Nashville. So I was like, well, I'll just show up. So just hearing him talk about the passion and the stuff, like, he could not wait. You would have thought that opening day was like whatever it was, mid-December. So that's what he's going to bring. He's not going to take a day off. He's a guy that's the same intensity every single day, wanting to get better. That's the way he was as a player. That's what you're going to see from a I guess a bench coach type role, and just alleviate some of the pressure from Pat Murphy. I mean, in a world where if you can alleviate some of that responsibility, then you should. And I guess he's kind of turned most of the offense over to Ricky and his ideas. So Murph's still at the helm, and he's gonna but it's all falling on this coaching staff, and it's gotten bigger, and that's what you have to do. I know Gabe Kapler kind of did it with the Giants and found success about having more coaches so that, nothing falls through the cracks. So I think that's what you're seeing here. You're just seeing more people come in a specialty type role to make sure that everything gets addressed.
Almost like a football team type thing where you have like a head coach, an offensive coordinator, and a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I think there was an article or a tweet or something like that. Maybe Pat Murphy had a quote saying something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's a way things have always been done, and now they're finding out that, hey, we can do this better. It's not maybe a style of play on the baseball field. Baseball is kind of the same. There's a reason that the way you practice. They've been taking batting practice the same way for 50 years. Like it works. The way they do ground balls works, fly balls, that kind of training purposes before games, that works. But there's some philosophies in and around the game that you can change and modify based on your club.
So does it seem like they're kind of grooming Ricky Weeks to be like a future manager? I mean, he's got promoted twice in the same offseason to go from where he was, and now he's all of a sudden in the dugout right away. Yeah,
I didn't know he wanted to. Like, people were asking me, "Do you know that?" I see him every January, I guess, for fantasy camp out in Arizona, and I'd see him throughout the year in the big leagues, and I just, I didn't know if that was on his radar, but sounds like it is. I mean, if he wants to be a manager, I think he would do fine. I don't think he wanted to be the guy right away. I don't think he should have been.
Right.
I think he knew that if Pat Murphy's going to be here, then he needs to be the guy. And so I think the dynamic works. I know it's strange. I think people are probably like, maybe not fully invested in it because they don't know all the backstory and everything. But I think it's going to work out great. I love Ricky. Just spend 5 minutes with him, and you'll love him too.
Yeah, and you kind of tiptoed around it, watching his press conference, and you could tell he's excited.
Yeah, right. And it doesn't go away either. Yeah.
So outside of Devin Williams' changeup, because that's a little bit of an unfair answer to the question, who do you think has the best pitch in the bullpen? You kind of touched on Bukauskas a little bit, but
Abner Uribe. I mean, the guy throws 103, and it's got movement. Like, that's movement. If you manipulate a baseball enough, anybody can go and throw some kind of movement out there, and movement will always win. Velocity is great and all, but you saw, I've seen the last couple of years, I'm not picking on them, but for example, you look at the Reds starting guys. You got Ashcraft and you got Hunter Green. These guys throw fuzz. They'll be throwing 99, and then all of a sudden Yelich will just turn around to 99 at his belt inside, and you're like, how in the world? But if it's straight, you're giving a hitter a chance, right? You got to movement. You look at Greg Maddux. How come nobody hit Greg Maddux, extremely hard? It's because the ball's moving however many inches, That's what we're talking about with Junas's slider. It's like 13 inches of horizontal break or something like that. movement will win. Now, if you combine that with velocity, then you almost have an unhittable pitch.
Yeah.
Because by the time your brain even says, okay, well, I think I'm just going to swing right here, you're swinging at a spot where there's not going to be a baseball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that to me, Abner Uribe, the only thing with that, it's very hard to sustain. Athletically, like just physically, of being able to do that, repeat your mechanics, but then keep the ball in the zone, right? That's when you see a lot of walks with guys that throw really hard and have a lot of movement. But if you basically you're just fighting against that. If I can throw this for a strike, I got a shot.
So if you were the bullpen coach / Pat Murphy, what would your ideal 7, 8, 9 innings look like for the back end of the Brewers bullpen?
I mean, you probably could just close your eyes and throw a dart at some of these guys. But you got to have Devin Williams 9, and then I mean what Payamps did last year was phenomenal, and it reminded me a lot of Solomon Torres with the Brewers in 2008, where he kind of just, I don't want to say came out of nowhere. It's like you knew he was good, but suddenly he's every game is relying on this guy. Payamps did amazing. I think he kind of ran out of gas there for a while because he was being used so much. But what he did last year, he's earned that 8th inning role. But then you got Elvis Peguero. I mean, you can put him in the 7, or you can put Uribe in the 7th. But I think that's kind of how it would go with those 4 guys as of right now. I mean, anything can happen. But I think if you were to draw it up in pencil today, I think that would be your 4 for the last 3 innings.
Yeah. And maybe even a little bit of Hobie Milner in there as well.
You could put Hobie in any situation. He is so. I mean, I don't want to say underrated because we talk about him. I talk about him on the show all the time.
Yep.
But he is just any situation. He is your guy. Something happens and you're panicking. Like put in Hobie Milner. I don't know. The way he is built mentally is just super. It's rare. You know, I've had these teammates where you're like, I've had a guy that just middle of the game, it could be the toughest situation, and he's just cool and calm. And I feel like that's Hobie Milner. He's been in some tough situations. And it could be in the 4th inning. I think last year he pitched some game in I think he got in like the 4th or 5th inning out of necessity and had to eat up an inning or 2. Like that's the kind of stuff where if you're a 1-inning guy at the back of the bullpen, you're not going to be ready for that. You're like, what? I'm in the 5th? Like, that's strange. But he is the guy. He's ready. He's ready from the 1st inning on. So I need a guy like that. And not everybody can be that guy. So Hobie, if something were to happen, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised seeing him in the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. You got Devin Williams, if he goes, 3 days in a row and maybe it goes that way with all those guys. Yeah, Hobie Milner. I mean, you could put him in any situation. I'd let him play second base or play first. That's how much I trust him.
You use the exact word that I think of when we talk about Hobie Milner, and we bring him up all the time too because we feel like he's not brought up enough, and it's the underrated. So when we talk about it, it's like if we made like an underrated performer of the year trophy, like Hobie Milner would be the little guy on the top.
Yeah, he was like the unsung hero, I guess what they call it. Like 2 years ago, I think last year Bryce Wilson got it. And I know everybody wants to put an award on it, but like I just pay the man his money. I just go back to Rounders, like pay that man his money. Like just he has proved himself over and over and over again in different situations over multiple years. Just lock him up. I don't know why that's hard, but I guess as a reliever, when you start to get really expensive, it's tough. You can't sink too much money when it comes to your budget into a bullpen. So hopefully he'll stay cheap enough, long enough where they can just lock him up for a while.
Yeah, big fan of Hobie Milner. Okay, so one last question. Got to end on something kind of fun. Have you seen?
Yeah, because baseball's not fun at all.
Yeah, it's not fun, especially the way people act about winning and losing in spring training.
Oh.
Have you seen the Danville Dairy Daddies logo?
Danville Dairy Daddies? I don't know. I can look it up. Do you want me to look it up?
I got it ready for you.
Yeah. I have seen it. Dudes in jeans, got a belt buckle. Danville Dairy Daddies. Yeah. To me, it's almost like they're taking the Milwaukee Milkmen, kind of their shtick. So that's how I see.
And the Timber Rattlers did the Udder Tuggers a few years ago.
Yeah.
Just had to throw that out there. Just get some
No,
thoughts on it. See.
I think it's great. I actually had to get a haircut today, not because I wanted to, but and more of a beard. I bet I had more trimmed off my beard than my haircut. So we got to talking, and so I told him about baseball, and he started cracking up. He's like, "You ever heard of the trash pandas?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "What about the yard goats?" I was like, "Yeah."
Let's throw a guy like Wade Miley. Like I feel like Wade Miley would wear the hell out of a Dairy Daddy's jersey.
Yeah, he's special though. I mean, there's some guys that take it a little more serious.
Well, appreciate you hopping on and being part of our primer. We got a big group of guests, and we're happy that you could be one of them. Not just to name drop the fact that Tim Dillard is part of it, but we appreciate your insight, and it's always fun and always enjoyable to talk with you for a while.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah,
and again, thanks again.
Yep, no problem. See you.
Yes, Simon, there's a Trash Pandas team.
Yes, Trash Pandas is a real thing. Rocket City Trash Pandas.
That is not worse than the Dansville Dairy Daddies, though. That is so wrong on so many levels.
Michael, appreciate it. I got another one on deck here.
This is the one I was really looking forward to.
So this is Scary Alvarez. Scary Alvarez is a big presence on Twitter as far as Wisconsin sports are concerned, especially Wisconsin Badgers sports are concerned. And I'll give Scary the plug. He's got great guests on his show. He's got a lot of very relevant Wisconsin Badgers on his show. And he takes the time to join us once in a while. And he offered to give us his insight on what he's thinking about the Brewers' upcoming season. And still an enjoyable conversation that I have with Scary Alvarez. So I'm going to put that one up here next. Simon said I need a jersey from both of those teams. I'd rock a Dairy Daddy's jersey. I bet you would, Simon.
Simon, there's a shirt on there. Go one of the shirts. You'll know immediately what I'm talking about. You need to buy that shirt. That's the shirt you need.
All right, here we go with Scary Alvarez.
Welcome to our 2024 Milwaukee Brewers primer. Our next guest is Scary Alvarez, normally a guy that we have a lot of Badgers discussions with, but he also dabbles in other Wisconsin sports discussions and so generously offered to give us his Brewers insight as well. So Scary Alvarez is now part of our 2024 Milwaukee Brewers primer. So welcome back again. Feels like we haven't talked in 2 weeks.
It's been almost 8 days. Yeah, it's almost a lot. It's we all cope in our own ways. And I think some of the Wisconsinites that listen to your pod or watch your podcast might find some irony in me being on a baseball show, as I believe that I am unfairly blamed for killing or at least keeping it down Wisconsin baseball. Of course, Wisconsin, the program was axed for budgetary reasons in 1991. I was a second-year football coach at that time. I can assure you I had no hand in that, but Pat Richter did what he had to do, and we've not had a program since. And we can get into that. Obviously, the Brewers are the focus here, but I just want to say that I'm not against baseball at Wisconsin. There's some stumbling blocks, Title IX and otherwise, that would have to be overcome to get it there. But I think someday it'll be back.
I did plan to ask if you've strongly campaigned for Wisconsin baseball at all. We've talked to a guy like Amari Snowden, who's like a two sport athlete, and he said he wanted to talk to McIntosh about it. Now with some of the other teams that are coming to the Big Ten, maybe it's something where there's actually some baseball teams going around in the Big Ten that maybe would get added back.
Yeah, no, I'm not against it. I feel like it's gonna need boosters, and we're gonna need to either cut a men's team or add a women's team. It's a simple. I mean that is the calculus that you all have to do. And I don't know. McIntosh hasn't really tipped his hand about it, but if there could be a baseball program, of course you play your first month of the season down south, as all Big Ten teams do in the preseason or the early season before conference play. But yeah, taking a baseball trip to Los Angeles and Oregon and Washington and some of the it's fun, and there are a lot of really quality baseball programs in the Big Ten. They don't tend to make a lot of noise. The Hoosiers had a run a couple of years ago, and I think they made the College World Series. And the potential is there, but recruiting is hard in football for Big Ten teams. Baseball, you got right outside your door. You got pretty much year-round baseball weather in Texas and Georgia and Florida and California, and you got basically 2 good months here before the summer. So, or maybe 2 good months. But anyway, yeah, I'm all for it. That can be another show.
Yeah, All right, so let's start with the conversation that kind of bridged us into Scary Alvarez being part of our Brewers show. What is your honest, unfiltered opinion on Craig Counsell?
Yeah, I don't filter opinions ever, so just my honest opinion. It's come around a little bit, when the Cubs news first broke. Like all Brewer fans, it was shocking. It was a gut punch, figurative gut punch, but it felt literal. It would be like, me leaving the coach at Minnesota. I mean, it's that same kind of vibe. And that stuff just doesn't happen. I mean, Bielema's at a quote unquote rival now, but there was a long circular route before. And so I don't think that I certainly don't. I don't think any fans feel that Brett Bielema being in Illinois is a betrayal. But this was very, very different. This was just taking the money and running, and there was no way that the Brewers could match some of the stuff the Cubs are doing. It's just the way it is with a big market versus a small market team, as you well know. So I was very angry at him, and certainly not above doing some memes and things like that to jab at the guy. Do I think that Counsell's the devil incarnate? I do not. He has his reasons. He has the right to go where he wants to do to feel professionally fulfilled. All of those generic things are true. It's a fact. But when you get some of this later reporting that this has been his dream job and things like that, it does make you retroactively reevaluate some of the things he said and did at his time with Milwaukee, and you wonder if it was as genuine as it seemed, because he was as beloved a Brewers manager as I can remember since, some of these guys in the 80s when the Brewers were coming up and doing some of those, Harvey Keene and some of these guys. It's that vibe.
Yeah.
And it wasn't real. So that's a gut punch. I'm sorry. I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to be the bigger man and say it's okay. Counsell did the Brewers dirty. It's a fact. And that doesn't mean he needs horrible things said about him or threats. That stuff's bullshit. This is a game.
Yep.
But I don't like him. I don't like him anymore. I don't. I can't pretend that I do like him. And I don't wish him any success.
Yeah, that's the thing is like bottom line, like I hope you get paid all your money and I hope the Cubs suck like we do every year. It was a situation where it's like Craig Counsell is leaving the Brewers and it's like, okay, where is he going? And then he's going to the Chicago Cubs. And it's like, there are 30 teams in Major League Baseball. And like you said, to the comments that he's made, it's like, it feels like the Cubs would have been like the 30th team that he would have chosen to coach.
It's unbelievable. It's like Harbaugh leaving to coach the Buckeyes. That's a better analogy.
Yeah.
That's what it was like.
Yeah.
And can you even, I can't even imagine. It would have been hilarious as a Wisconsin fan to see that, certainly.
Yep.
Counsell could have been the Brewers manager until he keeled over.
So switching gears into 2024 Brewers, who is a player that you're just excited to watch this year?
I'm gonna not say the obvious answer, Jackson Churio. That's an easy one. So let's be have fun with this. Sal Frelick and DL Hall. Those are two dudes who, and we can get back into how DL Hall obviously came to Milwaukee in a sort of a divisive move there too.
Yep.
But I just think, and I'm really, it's not like I go into every season, please make it work at third base. But if Frelick can make it work at third base, he has it's I don't know what the results have been so far. He has as many at bats as he can handle this year. I feel like that's between that and subbing in the outfield, I think he's going to be, and he's good. He's shown, obviously showed last year a little bit. We got some glimpses of it. He is legitimate talent, and I really root for him. Hall has the arm, and it remains to be seen what he will do for the Brewers with that arm. Hopefully it'll be in its starting position. I know that's the angle they're going, but those are two guys I'm excited for.
And we can just use DL Hall as a transition here. What did you think of the Corbin Burns trade when it happened, and has your opinion changed since then?
We all have our gut reactions to something. So when you have a guy who is in any given year arguably the best starting pitcher in the National League, you're going to have a gut reaction to it. It felt like a gut punch in some of the same ways that Counsell did, but some of the different ways. Mm-hmm. Now, looking at it from a Moneyball perspective, when you play in a league unlike the NBA or the NFL, where you have real differences in team payrolls and significant differences, you look at it and say, who would we get for him? Because we were never going to get a long-term deal done with this guy. We weren't going to be able to afford it. So who'd you get? Well, you got DL Hall. I mean, so yeah, DL is highly unlikely to be a Corbin Burns at any time soon, maybe probably ever. But did you get a serviceable player with high upside? You did. Did you free up some room to sign other people? You did. And in this horrible landscape of the way baseball is done now, with the huge disparity in team payrolls, I think the Brewers actually did okay.
Yeah. And I know that's a thing where like people are like, well, we should have gotten Jackson Holiday and Adley Rutschman for Corbin Burns. And it's the bottom line is the Orioles are trading for him knowing that he has to be paid. And Zach Wheeler just got a new deal for 3 years, $126 million. So you're talking $42 million a year for one player. And that's tough to be expecting to get a number 1 or 2 top 5 prospects in exchange.
Losing Burns is a huge freaking deal. It's not quite like losing Counsell, but it's a top three Major League Baseball starter. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too, where like another guy to keep an eye on is going to be Joey Ortiz, the other guy that they got in the deal.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how he factors in. If he factors in more at shortstop or third base or whatever they end up using him for, because he's actually playing pretty well in spring training so far.
Well, that's good to hear.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you can't have guys with wins over replacement numbers and things like there are things you can do. And I suspect that the Brewers did a lot of research. Our office did a lot of research before making this deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jake and I have talked about it on the show. The Wisconsin sports, just in general, have some pretty good general managing going on. So in Matt Arnold, we trust.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the upper tier, I would say. But I do think, given how robust the Brewers farm system is right now, and it is robust.
Oh yeah,
they're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
I think the future is pretty bright for the Brewers, and we'll see how this managing fit comes in and go from there.
Yeah, lots of young guys coming, which is really exciting. You mentioned Jackson Churio already being one of them, but if there was a current Brewer, and I'll extend it to prospects as well, that you could have on the Scary Alvarez show, who would you pick?
Yelich, and I think that because he is not only a good player. I mean, he's been a little up and down the last few years, but he's a bridge. So he's a guy who's been there long enough where he has seen, how things have gone, some of the roller coaster stuff. He's been on some good teams, been on some not so great teams. He'd have opinions on, hopefully, on Counsell that he'd be willing to dish some tea on. But he would also have some really good realistic perspective on the future of the Brewers. I mean, he knows, he seems like a bright guy who studies the farm system. He would know what they're playing with this year. So if anyone is going to have a realistic perspective on what to expect in 2024 in Milwaukee, it's going to be Yelich. And he's also kind of done a little bit of an up and down with the fans. I mean, there was when you have 6 home runs in June, and you have the deal that he has, he's seen something, he's heard something, he's heard the boos and the guffaws, and then to in many, like he did in the second half of 2023, turn it around and show that you still got something in the tank. Yep. That'd be a really fun interview. And the kid's got a cool personality too. I call him a kid. For the Brewers, he's a KG veteran, but he seems like a good dude, and it'd be a lot of fun.
It seemed like, I think Woodruff would be a fun one to see on the Scary Alvarez show. Wade Miley, definitely. And then even going to the coaching side of it, I think Ricky Weeks would be a really fun Scary Alvarez podcast guest.
Yeah, Weeks is I'm really glad he is where he is.
Yeah.
And, you hear the like co-manager and things like that, but he's such a locker room guy, and I'm curious to see how that leadership thing, manager, et cetera, operates this year. I don't think it's gonna be a bad thing. I think it's gonna be cool, but it's two very different dudes filling, I think, two very different roles. I will say it's impossible to know how the mix is going to come out of the oven, but I do think that, kind of like with their farm system, the Brewers have a lot of pieces in place that would lead you to believe they're going to be a competitive team.
Yeah.
Until you see it on the field, you cannot lose Craig Counsell and the way his mind functions and the way he manages and how detail-oriented he is, and not be a little bit apprehensive about how things are going to be in the future because he's so good. But I like the mix that we have coming in, and I don't want to write anyone off. I think this team could be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, for sure. And it's Pat Murphy, so it's the guy that's been 3 steps down from Craig Counsell, literally 3 steps down from Craig Counsell for the last how many years? So
yeah, so it's he's the Brewers' Greg Gard.
Pretty much.
Is it too soon? I don't know. I'm not sure if there was a time when certainly that would have been considered a good thing, like, I don't know, January of 2024.
Right, yeah.
But no, not to. That's an easy. It's an easy analogy to use. But I do get the point, though. He does know the system, and he does have the locker room in all likelihood.
Yep,
so yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be optimistic. We'll see how it goes. It should be if nothing else, they may be a 72-win team this year, but it's going to be a fun team. I agree. Really will.
And we're going to find out a lot about the young guys that are coming.
Yeah, they're going to get all they can handle, I think.
So this is player specific with the Brewers. Who is a player that you would defend to the bitter end?
I don't know if he needs defending, but Paul Molitor. And I'm not sure he meant a current player, but I kind of, because Paul was as instrumental as anyone, maybe this side of Robin Yount, in the success the Brewers had in the early 80s. Just got it done. 39-game hitting streak, and just but there was some things, but the fact that he left and then basically became a Minnesota Twin, kind of switching, and it was never something like, I don't like Wisconsin, I'm going to go live in Minneapolis. But I think a lot of Brewer fans, they remember, Robin Yount and Cecil Cooper, Ben Oglivie, all these guys that you picture in your mind. It's a Brewer. It never changed.
Yeah.
Molitor had a second act that was very different from anything he did in Milwaukee, but I just remember what a presence he was, and just such a confident I'd say he has a smile on his face all the time, but he was just kind of a positive dude. And when he went up to the plate, you always thought he was going to get a hit. There's not too many guys like that, but Molitor is kind of in some ways the forgotten Brewer. And I think if he were, to say what his best years were and his most fun, I think he'd say Milwaukee.
One last question to get you out of here on a fun one. Did not tell you that I was going to ask you this, but I need to get your opinion on the Danville Dairy Daddies.
Yeah. Look, they say marketing is 90% of a team. But I one thing I don't remember is giving the Dairy Daddies an okay to use my physique on their Dairy Daddy. It's one of the most amazing and ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life in the world of sports. I'm all for it. I think it's great. I think that is awesome with the Scary Alvarez packs. All the more power to them. Hey, maybe you'll get some extra moms out to the ballpark. Bachelorette parties. They're just, I feel like there's a lot of, and the belt buckle. What a nice touch there. I don't know how long that belt's staying on, but well that belt is on. So that's a great thing.
Well, thank you again for hopping on and being part of our Brewers Primer, even though we've had you on for a lot of Badger discussion. So getting you out of the element a little bit and talking some baseball. So I appreciate you hopping in for this as well.
Love to do it, and let's see what the Brewers can do this year. I'm excited for the season.
Two things. 100% what I expected out of him, dude. The Dairy Daddies, 100%. He is awesome, dude. I love talking to him, interviewing him, just talking ball with him. He definitely seems like a guy that I would like to have a beer with. And I don't like to have a beer at all, but I would have a beer with him. That sounds weird as a Brewers fan. We're on the Brewers Primer, and I'm talking about not having a beer, but it is what it is. Also, man, I can't get over that comment, bro. I can't get over the comment. He said I didn't give him the rights to. I totally lost my train of thought because I was laughing so hard. Whatever. That was funny, dude. He knows his stuff, though. I'm impressed. One thing that I think I've learned definitely through this entire process of doing this podcast is that people love sports. Like, it doesn't matter, like, if you're just a Wisconsin Badger guy, right? They love the Brewers, right? If you're a Wisconsin person, you love your teams, you love the Bucks, you love the Packers, you love the Badgers, and like, you're going to see another one with somebody that you're not really, expecting. But we learned some things about him too, and it's just like, whoa, holy crap. I remember what I was going to say now. He's probably singing a different tune about Greg Gard after today. Just saying.
Well, I'll give you the full disclosure. That interview was recorded last Thursday, so
yeah, so
that was before the Purdue matchup. But so Jake kind of teased it a little bit. Our next interviewee is Mike Spofford, actually, the Packers.com editor, and we, like Jake said, we found a little bit about him that a little bit of unexpected baseball knowledge coming from the Green Bay Packers guy. He was interested in offering his thoughts, and this interview we did on Monday, and it was a really fun one.
Yeah, it was.
Excited. Our next guest that we were working with is Mike Spofford. Now, Mike Spofford has been on the show a whole bunch of times, and we usually have him on to talk Packers. But I sent Mike our off-season itinerary of all the shows that we're planning on doing with all of our draft prep and everything, and he goes, well, I'd jump on with the Brewers discussion with you guys. So here we are having a Brewers discussion with the editor of Packers.com. So, Mike, thanks for hopping on with us, and let's ask you a handful of baseball questions for the football guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm a big Brewers fan, been a Brewers fan my whole life, and love going to games. I've covered some games back in my newspaper days, so been around it for a long time.
Sweet.
Wow, this guy's a jack of all trades, huh? What excites you as a Packers reporter about talking about the Milwaukee Brewers?
As far as specifically this year in 2024, it's really interesting. I mean, I've been thinking about this, and there's never a direct comparison, but man, if there's anything that's close to starting over at quarterback in the NFL, like the Packers just did, it might be going into a baseball season with the two horses at the top of your rotation that you've had for several years are gone. And those guys, your ace and your number two on the mound that are out there every 5 days, not going to be the same guys. So it's a big transition, I think, I think it's exciting. I mean, what the Brewers have in terms of their position player, both youth and depth, and promise and potential and all that. I can't remember a year that has been, this exciting. I think, there's a lot of questions, both as far as the pitching and, with regard to the position players, but man, these young guys, we've heard a lot of names. Now some new ones have been thrown into the mix with the Burns trade and all of that. I think it's an exciting time. It's going to look and operate, in my opinion, like a very, very different team. And not just because you changed managers. I think it's because of the personnel and the roster.
So they were able. You mentioned the two guys at the top of the rotation. They were able to bring back Brandon Woodruff. It's just he's not going to be pitching in 2024, unfortunately. Right. At least not until maybe late August or September, if it's possible that it happens at all.
Yeah.
But like you said, with the guys they traded for Corbin Burns, there's going to be so much youth and all the new names. So what advice? Now you obviously are the Packers guy. What advice would you give to fans of a team that's full of young and unproven players?
I mean, one, of course, is just be patient because the way this Brewers team looks in April and May, maybe even June and July for that matter. I mean, the baseball season is a long slog, just like the football season is, but it's long in a different way. And, 162 games is a lot of ball games. And, this team, you knock on wood as far as the health, and you hope these young guys can stay healthy. Like, Garrett Mitchell, for instance, who unfortunately had to miss, pretty much all of last season. You hope he's back ready to go, full time, and those other guys, follow suit in that regard. But you have to be patient, and you have to enjoy the ride. I mean, baseball is, these guys are gonna go on hot streaks. They're gonna go on cold streaks. They're gonna, it's the nature of the game over the course of a 6-month season. And while I'd never count a team out, in a division, in my opinion, that doesn't appear to have any kind of a juggernaut team. I don't think the NL Central has any team that, everybody is screaming like, oh, those guys are the favorites. They're headed to the playoffs for sure. So there's always that hanging out there. But at the end of the day, it's going to be, after 162 games evaluating, okay, how did the youth do? Where are these guys going? Where are they at? And, we'll probably be able to talk football comparisons throughout this entire conversation. But, if anybody had said, at Halloween that the Green Bay Packers were going to be one drive away from the NFC Championship game, nobody would have believed you, right? So it just, it's a long season. You got to let it play out. You got to see where it goes. You got to see what happens. And I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about the Brewers, whether or not the playoff streak, continues this year and in terms of making the postseason or adding to that, list of postseason years, whether or not that happens, I think there's a lot of excitement about this ball club.
Two major things I took away from that, Mike. First of all, great answer. One, it's pretty shocking that you'd wait the entire year to evaluate players. That's pretty crazy to me.
30 games in baseball, you're supposed to make all your decisions.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, we're gonna wait until
trade this guy, keep this guy in the minors, and this
April 22nd. Jackson Churio isn't the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Brewers groups on Facebook would decide that the baseball season is over in June. I don't know if you remember that, Tyler.
Last fire year. Pat Murphy right away.
Yeah. The baseball season was over in June. That was surprising to me. But quickest baseball season of my life. So it's pretty fair to say you're going to get to a game this year. So if you get to a Brewers game, who is a player you're going to want to see?
Well, I mean, the top of the list is obviously Jackson Churio. I mean, assuming he's going to be up with the big league club, I mean, there's a ton of anticipation, I think, for any Brewers fan to get to a game and to see him play. But there's a whole bunch of guys that would sort of be, answer 1A as far as that question goes. I mentioned Garrett Mitchell before, I think, if he's a guy who's playing every day or relatively every day, maybe except for, facing left-handed pitching, perhaps, that's a guy I want to see. I mean, we haven't seen a full season of Sal Frelick, right? I mean, he was a, mid-season call-up. And then there's a possible position switch, with him going on and taking over at third base. And, Joey Weimer's new stance and swing and all that's being talked about in spring training. I mean, I went to a lot of games last year, and I kept texting my friends when I was at games. The first time I saw Joey Weimer, actually, it was in early or mid-May. I had just randomly flown out to visit a buddy of mine out in San Francisco, and the Brewers were playing the Giants on the road that weekend. And so that was the first time I saw, Joey Weimer, in person, like at a game. And I couldn't believe the stance and the swing and the fundamentals. And I'm like, how in the world is this going to work? And he went through his hot and cold streaks like young players do. I mean, I was also at a game where he murdered a fastball against the Dodgers at AmFam Field that went 400 plus feet to win a ball game against LA. And I was blown away by how hard he hit the ball. So, but now seeing that he seems to have, maybe calmed things down a little bit with the fundamentals, and, the talent is there, the athletic ability is there. So he's another like really exciting guy. And then, you toss in these guys who were parts of the big trades, right? Robert Gasser, is he, from the Hader trade, is he a guy that we're going to see this year? And DL Hall and Jacob Ortiz from the Burns trade. I mean, there's a ton of guys that, I'm really excited to go see play in person throughout the course of the season. Well, I should say up until about the end of July when training camp is going to start, and then I can't go to games anymore. But those first 4 months of the season, I'm going to try to get to some ball games for sure.
I like it.
So who are your favorite Brewers past and or present?
Oh, I mean, for me, the answer as far as the past is always Robin Yount. I mean, I grew up watching that guy. He played. Paul Molitor's a close second, but Robin Yount will always be at the top of the list for me because he did play his entire career with the Brewers. It was when I was in college. I was sitting in the county stadium bleachers the day that Yount's number 19 was retired by the team. I was there for the uniform, the number retirement ceremony. Cool. That was pretty cool to, just to be there at County Stadium that day for the guy that, was kind of like my idol as a baseball player growing up. I mean, the fact that he won MVPs at two different positions, shortstop and center field, and was so durable. The guy played 150 games every year, and always ran everything out. There was never an off the field or attitude issue or anything with regard to Robin Yount. I mean, he's exactly the kind of guy you'd want every ball player to be. So he's always been my favorite.
Constant professional. I like it. That's a good answer. My dad would agree with you, by the way. So you've interviewed a lot of really cool Packer players, a list that Tyler and I are very jealous of, obviously. But is there a current or former Brewer you'd want to interview today?
Oh boy, that's a good one. I mean, I'd love to sit down. I'd love to sit down and chat with some of these guys who become stars today. I mean, whether it's Christian Yelich to just, talk about hitting, it wouldn't, for me, it wouldn't even be like, an interview, trying to talk about their careers. Like, as somebody, I played like high school and college baseball, and baseball is, my favorite sport. Actually, it's really the game that I love the most. And so I would love to sit with a guy like Christian Yelich and just talk about hitting, and because, by the time I got to the college level, I met my match. There weren't any scouts in the stands, looking at me or taking any notes when I was in the batter's box. So, I'd love to talk hitting with a guy like that. Like, what's it like to face a 98 mile an hour fastball? What's it like to face a 92 mile an hour slider that, breaks at your back ankle, and how do you try to hit that, so that's what I would enjoy from an interview opportunity.
I like it.
So switching gears a little bit to relating another question to football is, preseason is more about getting reps and playing young guys and finding out what you have. What would you say to people who just whine about the results of spring training games, similarly to how they do with preseason football games?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the same thing. I mean, what's on the scoreboard at the end of the game, like, really has nothing to do with what the team is trying to accomplish that day, whether you're talking baseball or football. It's not about the scoreboard. It's about the development. It's about the opportunity for young players. It's about finding out what you have, and it's about getting ready, for the long haul. I mean, 6 months of baseball, and the guys who are going to play every day, and who are going to play anywhere from 120 to 145 games or whatever the number might be for the real regulars. That that's a lot, and their focus is on getting ready during spring training. Their focus is not on I need to end spring training with a 325 batting average. Like, not a single one of those guys thinks about it in those terms at all. It's about getting ready to play and getting ready for the long haul. And I think as a fan, you have to understand that.
I would say the same thing with pitchers too. Like the other day, Freddie Peralta, he got banged around a little bit, but he was literally trying new pitches that he's never thrown before.
Sure. Yeah. And I've seen that too, as an example, like in training camp, covering the Packers practices, like for those who, kind of, follow all the stuff on social media and all of the, minutia of the coverage of training camp, which, there's plenty of it out there on the Packers. One of the things that that people love to look at and to follow are the one-on-ones, between the offensive and defensive linemen, the pass rush, pass blocking one-on-one drill. Well, there are some days in that drill where the pass rusher is maybe working on a technique that he hasn't used before, or the offensive lineman is working on a technique he hasn't used before. Those are things that, covering training camp practices for a couple of decades now, those are things that you have to understand. And it speaks to your point about the pitching, that guys are going to try new pitches in spring training. They're not going to try new pitches on April 15th.
I'm very disappointed in myself right now because I make a lot of, comparisons between sports when we go live on Wednesdays and Fridays. I make a lot of comparisons between the teams, but I never thought to do that in the training camp. I don't know why I never thought of that. That's smart, actually. I should. Oh my God, I'm very mad at myself right now. That was smart.
So that and patience, the overarching themes, definitely good ones to keep in mind through the season. I'd be happy to check in with you during the season too, especially before you get super busy with training camp and get some of your thoughts during the season. But thank you for taking some time to jump on and answer a handful of questions and be part of our extravaganza of guests that we have for our Brewers Primer. We're excited that you could be a part of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me. It was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So Mike Spofford's favorite sport is baseball.
Yeah, that still to this day, it's almost been a week with that. Knowing that information still blows my mind, dude. That is wild to me. Favorite sport is baseball, but he obviously loves football too. I mean, you don't work as doing this for that long if you don't love both. But man, we heard about some of his college stories, and that was a lot of fun, man. He's Mike Spofford. He's a great guy, dude. He truly is.
Yeah, big fan of Mike Spofford.
Yeah.
All right. So appreciate everybody sticking with us. We have one more interview, and then we have our bold predictions and our record predictions. So we have Vinney Rottino left as our last interview, and then some spicy predictions and our record predictions, and that's our primer. So we're gonna play our last interview, and then we're gonna get to the last of the predictions, and we'll be out of here.
Questions, or we're gonna tug at the heartstrings of some Brewers fans, but we're gonna get it. We're gonna rip it off like a Band-Aid and get it over with. So, what did you think about the Corbin Burnes trade when it happened, and has your opinion changed since the trade?
No, well, it's when it happened, I was excited, to be honest. Okay, because these are the types of moves. I was sad to see Corbin Burnes go, of course, but I was excited to see the package that they got back in specifically the name of DL Hall. Love DL Hall. So as a scout for the Texas Rangers in 2017, I did a lot of homework on the draft. Even though I was a pro scout, I did side work for fun, basically, on the draft. And DL Hall was one of my favorite arms in that draft. Kind of followed him. Yeah, he had the best curveball in that draft, and I talked to him about that specific pitch because he has not been throwing it in his major league career as often. And he said, look, he kind of lost the feel to really get out in front of it and spin it. So watch to see that pitch kind of make a comeback now that he is with the Milwaukee Brewers. But so to answer your question a little more pointedly, loved the fact that they got that package back. Loved the fact that the Brewers are going to have to continue to do this. You hate to see a Corbin Burnes just walk in his free agent year, because that's, frankly, guys, that's what free agents do after they become free agents and are stars for the Milwaukee Brewers. It's what happens. It is what it is. And so to see them kind of rebuild, even though while they're still winning, like it's rebuilding on the run, right? So that's kind of the feel. They're not having to reset, get a bunch of, basically tank and get a high draft picks. They don't have to do that. They can continue to do this. Fans just have to kind of accept it. And especially if they're going to get a package back like DL Hall, Joey Ortiz, and that 34th draft pick this season. And then that draft capital is huge as well. So the scouting department, the amateur scouting departments and Todd Johnson have been doing just a phenomenal job. Last year's draft, I'm very excited about guys like Cooper Pratt. He's going to be a stud, 6'4" shortstop that can move and 19 years old. A lot to be excited about.
It's a really refreshing take, I gotta say. And it does make sense. It's now that it really, full circle coming together, that you were the first one to really put it out there that DL Hall's fastball kind of looks like a left-handed version of Freddie Peralta.
Yeah, I tweeted about it, right?
Yep.
I did a side-by-side video of those two guys, or a top bottom type of video of those guys, and it was it looks very similar, just the way that they release the ball and then the extension that they get closer to home plate. Very athletic mover is DL Hall. He's not a big guy, but neither is Freddie Peralta, right? So they're very loose in the way that they deliver the baseball. Extremely quick arms out in front and can backspin it and have that low release too. Is very deceptive to hitters.
Yeah, makes sense why you were the first one on that. So what did you think of the Craig Counsell news?
Just the Cubs, really. I thought we all thought that he had a chance to leave. And then when we just found out that it was the Cubs, that was a little bit shocking. More than a little bit. But now that you see kind of how it played out, and you have Pat Murphy, and Pat Murphy's going to do a phenomenal job. There's going to be a lot of continuity between what Counsell was able to build in Milwaukee and that what Pat Murphy's going to be able to continue to build in Milwaukee. I think it's going to be totally fine. Brewers aren't a team that can afford $40 million for their manager, right? And again, we just talked about that. They can't afford to keep players long term if they turn into stars. And so I think it's fine. Again, it was shocking to me.
So what do you think about Brandon Woodruff being back? We didn't lose both pitchers, so
yeah. So what a savvy move by the Brewers here these are the types of deals that they can make, right? The shorter term deals, maybe for a little bit higher dollars than what Brewer fans are used to paying guys, but the shorter term deals, similar to what a Rhys Hoskins got. Woodruff is a unicorn. Woodruff is a unicorn in terms of how he interacts with everybody, not only in the organization, but really everyone in the city, in the state as fans. And he just connecting everybody. And then he is one of the best pitchers in baseball when healthy. And so the Brewers don't make this type of deal unless they think that right shoulder is going to get healthy, right? They just don't. They can't afford to make deals like this. So I'm excited about the possibility of him returning, not necessarily this year. I think we need to expect him not to return this year. And if he does surprise everybody, then, great. That's a bonus. But I think he's going to have a big part of the rotation and he's going to be a big part of the team for next year.
This is probably the thing that I'm most excited to ask you about. And we got a little bit more of Pat Murphy quote on it just in the last couple days. What do you think about Sal Frelick playing third base? And do you think Pat Murphy is being serious when he says that reporters aren't taking it as seriously as he is, that they're looking at him there?
I think that's probably true. Just reading the media in terms of, I don't think necessarily reporters are taking it that seriously that he is going to play third base. I mean, he hasn't played since high school. So I think that they're right in not necessarily taking it that seriously. And then he's only played a handful of innings, quite frankly, in spring training at third base. And so to then get thrown into a major league game and hey, go play the hot corner type of a deal, it's harder than it looks for sure. Take my word for it, because I didn't play it very well. So I think that's kind of where the reporters are kind of like a little bit leery of, is this real? But Pat Murphy, he shoots it straight. I mean, I think it gives the team roster flexibility, right? It gives the team lineup flexibility if he can do it. You could play Garrett Mitchell and Sal Frelick in the same lineup when Jackson Churio is in center and then Christian Yelich is in left. So it gets a lot of dynamic athletes, dynamic players into the lineup all at once.
Fun.
Yeah, I don't put it past them.
Joey Weimer, what do you think about the new swing?
Like the new adjustments. I talked to him in spring training when I was down there in the clubhouse. I think that he is still getting comfortable and getting used to that new approach. The hands are not diving down by his knees anymore and then trying to get back up on time. And then it's creating a situation where he's able to stay more centered and a little bit more controlled with that lower half. Because remember, we saw him really kind of lunge a little bit towards the pitcher, and that I think that really messed up his timing. Right-handed pitchers certainly had their way with him with breaking balls, with sliders. He was really having a hard time with right-handed sliders. And so I think that this is going to be a big adjustment for him, in a positive way. So I can just envision the team maybe letting him go down to AAA and get some more at-bats down there and get that swing feeling really good. You never know. I mean, he's a Gold Glove center field type player defensively on the defensive side. So it's really, the Brewers are really lucky to have this many great defenders. I mean, essentially they could roll out a lineup with 3 shortstops and 3 center fielders, and then a center fielder also on the bench. I mean, they could really roll that out, which is, I mean, not every team can do that. There's some teams that don't have one center fielder. So right. I love how Matt Arnold has constructed this lineup, has constructed this roster, this 40-man roster, and even beyond the 40-man roster as well.
Yeah, we talked to Javik Blake. He's the media play-by-play guy for the Shuckers, and talking to him about a guy like Luis Lara, who he's maybe hoping to see in Double-A this season. Might be with the Timber Rattlers a little bit, but I mean, just the outfield depth in the entire system as a whole is really exciting.
No, it really is. And you got kids like Luis Lara coming, some of the other young kids that just signed, age 16 years old down in the Dominican. I mean, from top to bottom, the scouting department, I don't know if it's matched in all of baseball between the international department, the pro department. Brian Gale leads. He's able to acquire guys that are already pro players, and then the amateur department as well, and the job that they do in the draft. So it's just it's really fun to watch, and there's certainly a pipeline of talent coming, especially in that outfield.
Another position that there's kind of not necessarily a pipeline, so to say, but there's depth coming is catcher. So Jefferson Cuero is obviously one of the guys that people are keeping an eye on. The Brewers also signed Gary Sanchez. Obviously, William Contreras is a star. But Eric Haas is playing really well in spring training. Do you see any avenue where the Brewers keep 3 catchers on the Major League roster?
I do, especially from the standpoint of considering that Sanchez is going to get a lot of DH at bats, and so it's going to be nice to have that backup catcher. Essentially, if you consider Gary Sanchez, El Gary, that DH, and kind of designated as the DH, then you could have Eric Haas be available to come off the bench. If for some reason that William Contreras comes out of a game, which I can't foresee really happening, then you do have that backup catcher. It's nice to have that backup catcher. I like Eric Haas, always have. Actually, when I was a scout, saw him catch a start, and it turned out that I was right. He's a good player. He's solid. He's solid behind the dish. He's had some seasons. He had 22 home runs in Detroit, like a Manny Pena, really, in terms of Manny came to the Brewers as a minor league free agent and then developed at the big league level. Well, Eric Haas is kind of that similar type of a guy.
Who is an under-the-radar player who can make an Andrew Monasterio-like impact in 2024?
Oof, that's a great question, guys. You guys come up with some really good ones.
Yes.
Thank you.
You really do. You really, really do. You're talking about on the position player side of things. So a similar type of a guy would be like a Jake Bowers, but he was a trade. It wasn't a minor league free agent sign. The guy that I really like, and after watching him play a couple games in spring training, was Oliver Dunn. I can see him kind of filling that role that Andrew Monasterio, although Andrew Monasterio is going to be a productive player for the Milwaukee Brewers this year as well.
Does he look like he's put on the 12 pounds of muscle that's been like reported, that he's hasn't lost any speed, but he's got like another 10 or 15 pounds of muscle? Does he look like it?
Yeah, he does look like it. He definitely looks like it. He didn't play winter ball this year, so he rested his body up a little bit, put on a little bit of weight. About 10, 15 pounds is about right, or a little bit more pop. So Oliver Dunn, I can see Oliver Dunn filling that same type of a role as well.
Who is a position player that you think might just miss the cut for the major league roster?
That's a good question. I think they're going to have to figure some things out in the bullpen. Thiago Vieira is throwing the ball really well, although he is throwing the ball really well. He's a he's a clubhouse favorite for sure. If he had more time, he would be a fan favorite with his samurai sword celebration after a save and after a strikeout.
No.
So
he's just saying he's from Japan, so it makes sense.
Dude, I love him already. Dude.
That's a name. That's a name that might get squeezed out, but he's really good.
I like it. So this is a really important question on our show since we do a lot of collateral damage, I'll say. What would you consider to be a successful season for this 2024 Milwaukee Brewers team?
Yeah, the answer that I'm going to give is not going to be an answer that's, very compelling, but I do think it's the right answer. I think if the Brewers make it to the playoffs, it's going to be a successful season. The reason why I say that is because they had their window with the starters, like the best starting rotation in baseball, and they've had to kind of pivot from that. And again, they just have to do it in order to sustain a competitive team, a team that can make the playoffs every single year. 12 teams make the playoffs, and you saw the Diamondbacks last year. Once they got in, you never know.
Yep.
So I do think just from the standpoint of there are a lot of names on here that need to step up and need to play well, and I think that they will because there's the talent. Matt Arnold continues to add talent, not just warm bodies, not just guys that can eat innings. These guys have ceilings. A lot of DL Halls of the world. They have ceilings. Joey Ortiz with that glove is unbelievable with the glove. So adding guys like that. But we just don't know. And so we really don't know exactly what they're going to give us. So I think if the Brewers do make the playoffs with this roster, I think it's going to be a successful season. And again, once you get in, you just never know. The makeup on the team with the Wade Mileys of the world, with the Brandon Woodruffs kicking around the clubhouse all day long, and the Willie Adamases, the makeup of the team is a winning makeup. And so again, if you get in, you never know, you can make a run and see what happens.
I would love this young roster to get experience and just make the big dance, man. Just make the playoffs, compete, show that you belong here, and that could be a springboard for 2025. So I love that answer, actually.
I cannot express how happy it would make me to knock the Dodgers out of the playoffs.
Without a doubt. And that's case in point right there. So the Dodgers just spent $1.2 billion in contracts this offseason, right? The Brewers, again, just cannot compete with that. Now, they will not have the same roster at the end of the year as they do at the beginning of the year. They just won't. It's just a matter of the Brewers, like you guys just said, continue to develop these young, talented players, and then you'll see they'll hit their stride at the middle of the year, towards the end of the year, and that's when you need to be playing your best baseball. And even if they just squeak in, that's all you need. Just like the Packers. And I do see a lot of comparisons right there to that young Packers team and this young Brewers team. If they can start playing well towards the end of the year, certainly we want them to play well all year, but they hit their strides, August, September, watch out. This is going to be a fun team to follow because there's not any veterans on this team that are going to drag this morale of the clubhouse down. There's just not. The Brewers just refuse to sign guys. They do their homework really well on a lot of these players in their makeup and their clubhouse makeup. They don't have any of that. In fact, they have the opposite of that. Rhys Hoskins, from everything I heard, was the leader in Philadelphia, not Bryce Harper, not JT Realmuto. It was Rhys Hoskins, believe it or not, with all those big names in Philly. So very interesting. I was kind of shocked myself when I heard that. So that's awesome that he is now a Milwaukee Brewer. And we'll see how he has an impact on the clubhouse. I think he's going to have a real positive one.
I love that. That was a good
all right, one last thing before we let you go. Have you seen the Danville Dairy Daddies logo come out?
Here we go again.
No, but I gotta look it up now.
I've asked this question to a handful of people so far of our guests. Curious to know your reaction.
Okay, let me see this thing. Okay. What is going on here?
That is the best reaction you can have. That really is. That's the only one.
I don't understand what is going on here. So what? Oh man. So are they steal? I mean, this is Wisconsin right here, right? I mean, but it's not anything we would put on a hat, I don't think, or a shirt.
That's so wrong in like 6 ways, man.
Yeah.
Did you see the one shirt they have? They have a white shirt as an option that you could buy that goes with the hat.
Oh, okay.
That's just come on.
Yeah. No,
come
man.
on.
Yeah, this is no bueno.
That's one of my favorites. I love that you said that.
That's great. All right, Vinny. Well, we appreciate you hopping on with us and getting your input on our Brewers primer. It's cool having you be a part of it, and all the other guys that we have on here, which is a cool thing for us to be able to put it together, and happy you can be a part of it and appreciate your answers.
Yeah, you guys do a great job anytime, guys. You know that. Just reach out, and it'll be a fun season.
All right, so real quick before we start doing bold predictions, I want to give a thank you to Vinney Rottino, to Mike Spofford, to Javik Blake, to Scary Alvarez, and to Tim Dillard for hopping on with us to be able to have 5 guests like that, and prominent people within the sporting industry. For them to be on our show is really cool for us. So Michael asked the question, Adames trade rumors are still out there, Dodgers, Blue Jays, Rays, maybe others still interested. When do we pull the trigger? Trade deadline or before? Just seems like it'll happen at some point. I'll say this. It happens, A, if Sal Frelick plays a really good third base. B, if Joey Ortiz or Andrew Monasterio look like they can be every single day infielders.
Yeah.
Because Joey Ortiz is a guy that can slide over to shortstop, I think a little easier than Andrew Monasterio, but Andrew Monasterio can then still be your insurance, your backup at second base to Bryce Terang. So to me, if Joey Ortiz and Sal Frelick are both playing a really good infield, I think that's where you maybe get into a conversation with Willy Adames. Other than that, right now his value is a little bit lower because he had kind of a down year in 2023.
Yeah.
So in my mind, let him build it back up. Put a bunch of guys that get on base in front of him. Let him rake, drive his value up, and, see what you can get for him.
The Dodgers have a pretty good farm system. So as much as it would hurt me to see him in Dodger blue, I mean, if he could start raking and we can get a couple of guys from them, I wouldn't be upset.
It should only be temporary, at least, until he goes somewhere else at the end of the year.
True.
All right. So we have a couple things left to do here. We're going to have bold predictions, record predictions. So we're going to do the bold predictions first, and we're going to end it on the record predictions. So Jake, give me your bold predictions. Rattle them off.
All right, I'm going to do them all. I'm going to start I'm going to start here. The Brewers win the Central by 10 games.
10 games.
It's bold, bro.
I just have written down that the Brewers beat the odds to win the NL Central.
10 games, bro. We run away with it.
Damn.
Away with it. All right, next one. This one's not crazy. Jackson Cheerio wins Rookie of the Year.
I like it.
That one I'm kind of speaking it into existence. Manifesting.
Bill said really interesting group of interviews. Thank you. Quite a rock star lineup. I mean, we think so. And yes, I looked up the Dairy Daddies shirts. Man, we should have gotten them like a sponsorship or something for the Dairy Daddies for doing this. We got to reach out and be like, hey, can we get some T-shirts? I want a hat. Actually. I want one of the hats.
Dude, I got to buy one of those white T-shirts, bro. They're so bad, dude. All right, this is my favorite one. Pat Murphy wins Manager of the Year.
Man, for all the times that Craig Counsell should have won it, I would love for Pat Murphy to win it in his first year.
That's kind of something I was thinking about. What if he wins it over Counsell?
That'd be amazing. Although,
That's a
if
good one.
Council doesn't win it by doing more with less in Milwaukee, if he
Yeah.
wins it by doing what he did in Milwaukee with Chicago's payroll, I'm hard pressed to not say that it's rigged.
Yeah, I was thinking it.
If he wins an award in Chicago for doing something he did the same as he did in Milwaukee with more resources at his disposal, you can't convince me that it's not rigged.
I agreed.
All right, so you got one of mine already. The Brewers beat the odds to win the NL Central. My other two are a little more spicy.
Ooh.
So, do you want my position or my pitching bold prediction first?
Pitching first.
The Brewers pitching staff has a lower ERA and higher strikeouts in 2024 than they did in 2023.
That would actually be nuts, dude.
In 2023, they had a 3.73 combined ERA and 1,425 strikeouts.
That's a lot of strikeouts, man.
And to be fair, I did write this before Devin Williams went down. So that might be a factor, but
Never know. Abner Uribe could be the next guy. You never know.
And then my last bold prediction is that the Brewers have the best defensive and a top 10 offensive outfield in all of baseball.
Oh. Top 10 offensive, huh? That would be amazing. That would help in my 10-game prediction, by the way.
That's true. That would. And that really hinges on a healthy Garrett Mitchell, a solid rookie season by Churio, a good leap in development from Sal Frelick, and a little bit of resurgence from Joey Weimer, as well as Christian Yelich building on the season he had last year.
I like all of that thing.
And if all those things happen, I think that's where that bold prediction potentially comes true.
I concur.
All right. Record predictions, one from the head, one from the heart. Give me your record prediction from the head.
From the head. So, do you remember the Miami Marlins record? And they snuck into the playoffs last year.
They have like 89 and 83, 89 and 73?
84 and 78.
Oh.
84 and 78, and they snuck into the playoffs. Last year, the Milwaukee Brewers went 92 and 70. Pretty comfortable lead over the Miami Marlins, who we kind of beat up on towards the end of the season as well. Yep. But I have the Brewers from the head, very similar, at 84 and 78.
All right. From the head, I have the Brewers at 85 and 77. Their current projection is 79 and a half. So yep. we are 5 or 6 games ahead of where they are projected to finish.
Well, they're not going to like my heart prediction. Because if everything goes to plan and Churio pans out and DL Hall is as advertised, the defense is there, Contreras is hitting, and we get a resurgence of Hoskins, everything's firing, I see us going 89 to 73.
I'm going to be honest with you. My heart prediction is higher than that.
Wow.
And it revolves on the talent of the young players, their potential, and those guys being closer to their ceilings than to their floors like they were last year. Mm-hmm. So that's going to count on a big year from a guy like Bryce Terang.
Yep.
And I will say that with Garrett Mitchell healthy, being able to move Christian Yelich to the 3 spot, that's where he batted for most of his MVP season. So you move Yelich to the 3, and you have Garrett Mitchell, William Contreras, Christian Yelich, Rhys Hoskins, and Willy Adames as your top 5. And then you can still do Sal Frelick, Bryce Terang, say Joey Ortiz or Andrew Monasterio, and then you can still stick Gary Sanchez in there as your DH.
Yeah.
The Brewers have a lot of options for their lineup this season, and if guys play together well at the same time, I don't see a reason why the Brewers can't win 91 games this year. So I have, from the heart, I have 91 and 71. And again, it revolves around the young guys taking the next step. And I'm talking about the whole step. I'm not talking about baby steps. I'm talking about taking a whole step forward.
I can see it. I mean, The DH is really going to be like Sanchez against lefties and Yelly against righties, and then you can try to get the Mitchells of the world in there and stuff like that. But it's definitely possible. I don't see it as like out of this universe crazy, but I can see it.
The other thing that I want to put in here too is my RBI predicted leader is Willy Adames. Is if you get a resurgence from Willy Adames, more like 2022 Willy Adames than 2023 Willy Adames, where Willie's setting the franchise record for home runs by a shortstop, and the Brewers are putting more guys on base ahead of that. That this Brewers team actually they could put some runs up.
Well, geez, just look at that stat from last year when he had 2+ hits. Look at our record.
Yeah. And let me throw this out there. This is something I had
unstoppable.
written down from the end of last season as a positive takeaway. The Brewers had 7 walk-off hits last year. 6 of them were from rookies.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. If you have stuck with us for the last 2.5 hours, we appreciate it. And we hope you got some insight on the upcoming Brewers season. Enjoyed the list of guests that we had, some of the predictions we've made, some of the stats we've thrown out there, and we'll see how it goes. That's what we're looking at for the 2024 Brewers season. We are going to cover all of the games. All of them will be here from opening day to the last game of the season, whether it be game 162 or sometime in October in the playoffs. Regardless of when it is, we are going to cover every single game on Wednesdays starting at 4:00. And, spoiler alert, we're looking at doing some watch parties for some games with our own pregame and postgame show. Special thing that we're looking at doing starting in 2024. So keep an eye out for announcements on that. Other than that, again, thank you for sticking around with us, commenting along, for the kind words on the interviews, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, and go Brewers.
One last thing. We start the draft prep next week, boys. Let's get it going.
All righty. Have a good night, everybody.